drastic as the economy has changed for us, that we will probably something that happens to us once in a lifetime and not always have such drastic changes as we've seen with the economy in the United States.
To be clear, of course, the conversation over this continues and the debate over it continues. You didn't take a vote on the issue itself.
Yes, what we did is my colleague, Council Member Bill Rosenthal, and I drafted a motion asking the city clerk to and our colleagues to put this on the March 2nd ballot for the voters to decide whether they would like to go with this new system of voting so that we change our city charter. After a discussion, we decided that the best thing to do at this time is to have all the entities involved sit down, answer all the questions that my colleagues in the council had, and come back to us with a report as to if we wanted to move in this direction, what would we need to do. Because after all, the community colleges and the LAUSD depends on the city charter as to how it conducts its elections. So what we will need to do is sit down with LAUSD, with the community colleges, and several other affected entities and talk about this. They'll come back to us with a report within 3 or 4 months, and then we will decide if we're going to move forward with this or not. But one thing is for sure, the community colleges, at least the majority of the trustees at the community college district have already expressed their interest that they want to move in this direction and get instant runoff voting as soon as possible.
A few moments ago you mentioned voter fatigue, and during the council session, of course, you brought up that instance where in your polling place you and your wife were half of the electorate. Is there any data to support what levels of voter fatigue there are, and if voter fatigue occurs only when there's practically nothing else on the ballot?
Well, voter fatigue is very clearly given to us in terms of the low number of people who are going out to vote. You know, in my district and in other council districts, we have anywhere in the range of 9 to 11% of eligible voters going out to vote. And that does drop dramatically from the original race to the runoff in the system we have now. So you just have to look at the number of people who are coming out. I mean, people don't vote for a number of other reasons, but this is one of them that is contributing to people who not voting. You see a huge drop between the first election to the second election, where they have to go just 2 or 3 months afterwards to vote again, and you see a huge drop in the number of people who are going out to vote.
There was some debate, of course, about the cost of the city, how much money might be saved by going to this method. But it occurred to me and some other people who are watching you in the council chambers, wouldn't the county also have to change over to instant runoff voting? Yes,
what we would have to do in order to keep consistent and not have duplicative times to go vote, because after all, that's what we're trying to change. Our systems, our voting systems, have to be consistent with the county, and the county, in fact, does run some of our city elections at times, and so we would have to have the instruments that are compatible both with the county and the city, so that as we go forward, we're using the same systems. The county would perhaps have to also go through the same change, and we're hoping that when the city goes forward, the school district and the community colleges will also go forward, and we hope that with that momentum, the county would also change to instant runoff voting. And since it conducts the elections for all of us, we would have to get consistency in the type of equipment that we're using. And you know, this system, if we change, will save us millions of dollars, because we would not have to conduct another election. Obviously, when we first started, we would have to invest some money up front to change the systems, but those savings are, the cost to do that, I mean, are going to be minimal compared to the savings we're going to have when we change completely over into instant runoff voting.
So some of the points involved here, not only with the timing of voting in all of the various jurisdictions within the county have to be the same, but if all the machines weren't the same, that would certainly create voter confusion, maybe keep some voters away from the polls altogether.
Yes, that's correct, Jack. If we don't have all the systems the same, the county and the city, it would create more confusion. So the idea is to go in tandem along with the county, and that's why this working group that I created will give us that information. We'll be online, we'll look all into those details, and we'll move forward once we get that information. I think what happened at this last discussion in council was that most of my colleagues weren't as familiar with the steps that need to be taken to get get there. I think some of them still have some questions and some very good questions. How does this affect minority voting rights? How will this affect existing council members? And all these questions have to be answered, obviously, before we move forward. But, you know, I've looked at this. I have my own experience in going to vote where 4 other people had only voted, and one being my wife. It's shown me very clearly that we need to do this to save money, and we need to do this to improve the voter turnout that we have. And in my case, in my view, the savings we get from this change in this system could be put to another great cause that I hope to push forward, and that is public financing of campaigns. That's just one option as to how we could use this money, but we really have a lot of work to do in the way we're conducting our elections to improve them. Not everything should be static, as we have had for our systems. They've been around for a while, and everything needs improvement.
You mentioned London specifically a few minutes ago, and you said there were some other municipalities in the U.S. What kind of big cities, and how long have they been at it? And do you have a measure of success or not?
Yes. Well, San Francisco has had it for some time. I'm not sure how specifically. Places like Berkeley as well have had them. Oakland is moving towards IRV, and London has used it for some time. And San Francisco has found that you needed some time to really educate the voters on this change. That is, when they go from choosing just one person that they prefer to ranking their choices, and they found and they recommend that we actually invest in education of the voters. But they also found that after some little time, people get used to it. They understand it, and then it's something as if they've always been using it. No problems have come of it, and they actually have found the results that we predict they will find, which is they've saved millions of dollars in elections, and their voter voting turnout has gone up. In fact, San Francisco's voter turnout is way up compared to what Los Angeles has. So that's an indicator of the positiveness of the benefits of moving to instant runoff voting.
Something else I hadn't thought of until I heard the chief legislative analyst talking with you and your colleagues about it had to do with campaign financing laws and changes that might have to go into effect if we went to instant runoff voting.
Well, that's something that we're currently looking into. We're not quite sure if changing to instant runoff voting in and of itself will require us to change campaign finance laws. We obviously won't have a runoff, so anything associated with financing of campaigns and how we finance them under our current system, how that will have to change. I don't think there's going to be dramatic changes, but one of the suggestions I have is the millions of dollars we do save from going towards instant runoff voting, that perhaps we could use that money to do public financing of campaigns and get away from special interests playing a large role in elections like we do now.
Well, even under that scenario, though, wouldn't, as some of your colleagues suggested with instant runoff voting, a wealthy, self-funded candidate have an advantage?
I really didn't understand where that comment came from. I don't think that a wealthy, self-financed candidate would have any more of an advantage under instant runoff voting than they do now today. If a wealthy candidate wants to run for office and they put their own money into the race, they've got some advantages already. Under instant runoff voting, I really don't see how a wealthy individual will have any more advantage under that system than they do today. They finance a campaign, they have money up front, they're not limited by how much money they could put into their own campaign, and I don't see the same thing under instant runoff voting.
Well, regardless of what system we use, we've been saying for years, how can we get more people involved in the process? This year, it seems like the answer is have more exciting candidates.
Have more exciting candidates, and this time it seems like young people are going to the polls in droves. We've been watching the news reports that people are waiting in line 2-3 hours to vote, and I think that's healthy for democracy. I think that's good for this country, and it's important to continue to find efforts to get more young people involved, because when more young people are involved, you find that continues on for generations that come. And also what we need to do really is to find and explain to the voting electorate how the decisions that our government officials make really affect their everyday living, and they do, and it makes a huge difference as to who's in office. And so I would urge all Angelinos to please take up that right that we have in this country that very few individuals have throughout the rest of the world. It's a liberty that many people have died for us to have, and hopefully aside from instant runoff voting, we'll find other things that make it easier and better for people to vote. You know, perhaps we've seen in other states people can drive through and vote now. You have equipment that makes it a lot easier, convenient, especially for working families that put in a long day at work, and you know, two parents who are working, and to find the babysitting, all those issues. We should find ways that makes it more convenient and efficient for people to go out and vote, no matter what background you come from, no matter what your lifestyle may be. And that helps all of us, because when the majority of our preferences are expressed, we're going to continue to move forward as a country and a city in a much more unified fashion.
Amen. District 14 Councilmember Jose Huizar, thanks for joining us on Council Week in Review.
Thank you.
So, the item on instant runoff voting was sent back to committee for further examination and will not be on the March 2009 ballot, but come back before the City Council by July 4th, 2009. Regardless of the system used for voting, we encourage everyone to exercise their right to vote. And while the presidential election has captured the most attention this election season, we remind you to also consider those issues on the ballot that affect us locally. For example, measures A, B, J, Q, and R on this week's ballot may affect your quality of life right here in Los Angeles. Every election season, we urge you to make up your mind and cast your vote. You can listen to City Council meetings as well as committee and commission meetings on the telephone by using the city's council phone system. In the downtown area, dial 213-621-CITY. In West LA, dial 310-471-CITY. For the San Pedro area, dial 310-547-CITY. And in the San Fernando Valley, dial 818-904-9450. Just follow the recorded instructions for the meetings you want to hear. And we invite you to address the Los Angeles City Council on any item on the council agenda, as well as during public comment. You may come downtown to City Hall or go to the Van Nuys City Hall and participate via video teleconferencing. And remember, you can watch all Los Angeles City Council meetings live in their entirety on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays beginning at 10 a.m. On Sundays, you can watch the replay of all the week's meetings, also beginning at 10 a.m. Council Week in Review can be seen Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. On Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Well, that concludes our program for the week ending October 31st, 2008. On behalf of Tony Agani and everyone here at Channel 35, I'm Jack Popejoy. Thank you for watching, and please join us for the next Council Week in Review.
Good morning, Los Angeles, and welcome to the City Council meeting for Wednesday, November 5th, 2008. It's a great day in Los Angeles and across the United States this morning, and we want to thank everybody who's here in Council Chambers, as well as those who are joining us on Channel 35. I want to thank the Council members who are here on time pursuant to Council rules. Those are Council members Huizar, Labange, Reyes, Weiss, Wesson, and Zine. Mr. Parks and Mr. Smith and Mr. Rosendahl are excused today, but we do expect the rest of the council here who are now late. Council members Alarcon, Cardenas, Hahn, and Perry. If you will please join us right away so we can begin the meeting. We are awaiting 3 more members. I'm Council President Eric Garcetti, and again, welcome to all of our viewers on Channel 35, which broadcasts us live through the city's cable system and rebroadcasts in the evening. We're also available online through lacity.org, our city's homepage, where you can catch live streaming webcasts of our council meetings and where we archive our past council meetings as well. Finally, you can always use your telephone and call Council Phone, which allows you to listen in to the City Council meetings or any of our committee meetings. That number is 213-621-CITY. That's 213-621-CITY. Our agendas are available online at lacity.org. That's the same city homepage. Those are posted 72 hours in advance or made available here in Council Chambers and at the City Clerk's office 24 hours in advance for our special agenda items. We also have those notified for or noticed for items that have already received a public hearing in committee and those which have not. If you'd like to be heard for an item that has not yet had a public hearing, please fill out a speaker card in the back and hand that to one of the sergeants at arms, and we'll make sure that we get you into the mix today. If you have comments of a general nature that are for items not on our agenda but nevertheless under our jurisdiction, we also have a part of our meeting called General Public Comment, and if you'd like to be heard on that, do the same thing and just fill out a speaker card in the back and hand that to one of the sergeants at arms. We are still awaiting 2 more members. Thank you to Council members Alarcon, Huizar, Labange, Reyes, Weiss, Wesson, and Zine for being here. I think we're expecting Ms. Gruhl and Mr. Rosendahl, I'm told, are on the way, and we still are awaiting Mr. Cardenas, Ms. Hahn to come as soon as possible. So thank you for your patience, and we will await a quorum. We cannot establish a quorum in the next 10 minutes or so. We may have to adjourn the meeting, so please, if City Council staff will help get their members down here. Thank you. thank you again, everybody, for your patience. We have 9 members here right now. We're still waiting Mr. Cardenas, Ms. Rule, Mr. Rosendahl, and Ms. Perry. We will make a couple more calls and see if any of them are close at hand before we cancel the meeting, but we will do our best to get one of the 3 of them there, and we want to thank everybody again for their patience as we await a quorum. Thank you. My colleagues, Ms. Perry is in the building. She's on her way here, and we will start in about 2 minutes. All right, we have a quorum. If Madam Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Gruel, Han, Weezer, Lavange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Wesson, Zine, Garcetti. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
First order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
All right, Mr. Zine moves and Mr. Reyes seconds. Without objection, those will be approved. Next order of business.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Huizar moves and Mr. Alarcon seconds. Without objection, that will be approved as well. We can run through the agenda, please.
And, Mr. President, before beginning the regular agenda, there's a request to continue several items.
Okay.
Item number 6, there's a request to continue that matter for 30 days, and that would be December 5th.
Okay. Any objection to continuing item 6 till December 6th? If not, so ordered. Next items to
And
continue?
there's also a request to continue item number 12 to November 19th.
Okay. Any objection to continuing item 12 to the 19th of this month? Seeing none, so ordered. Ms. Perry?
I'm going to ask for the next one to be continued. 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which item would you like continued?
13.
13 till, we have to request till the 26th, 2 weeks?
That's fine.
Okay. Without objection, we'll continue item 13 till the 26th of this month. Any other continuing?
Yes, Mr. President. One of the closed session items, item number 27, and that would be for 2 weeks to November 19th.
Okay. If there's no objection, we'll continue that as well for 2 weeks till the 19th. Okay. Next items, please.
Next items, Mr. President, are items noticed for public hearings. Item number 1 is a confirmation of a building and safety a lien.
All righty. Anybody wishing to call item 1 special? Do we have any cards on that, Madam Clerk?
No.
Okay. Well, we will open and close the public hearing. If nobody wishes to call 1 special, let's go ahead and please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Item 1 is approved. Next items, please.
Item number, just to let council know, on item number 4, there was a request to refer that matter to Public Works Committee.
Item 4? Public
Yes.
Works. Okay. Is there any objection to referring that to Public Works Committee? If not, we will go and do that. Next items, please.
Next items 2 through 5, with the exception of 4, are street vacations, and the recommendation for council action would be to instruct the city engineer to proceed.
Okay. We will open and close the public hearings on those. There are no cards. Anybody wishing to call those special? If not, let's prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are approved. Next item, please.
Next item is also public hearing item number 7, and I believe there is a card on that
Okay.
item.
We'll call that special for a card from the public. Next items, please.
Next items are items for which public hearings have been held, items 8 through 14. Item number 8, as a commissioner, do you wish to hold that on the desk?
Yes, please. We'll hold the commissioner on the desk.
And that would leave 9 through 14 with the exception of 12 and 13. There are ordinances on 9 and 10. Do you wish to hold those, or do you
Yes,
wish to?
please. We are expecting Ms. Gruel and Mr. Rosendahl, I think, are on their way in, so we will hold 9 and 10 for 12 members. That leaves 11 and 14. Anybody wishing to call special 11 or 14? Seeing no council members wishing to call those specials, let's go ahead and open the roll on those two, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items, please.
Next items are items for which public hearings have not been held, items 15 through 24. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay. Anybody wishing to call the specials? I believe we have some cards from the public on those. Is that right?
Yes, there are cards on 15, 16, 17, 21, and 22.
Okay.
And also, just for council's information, on item number 15, there are several of those that have already been considered and adopted by council, so council can receive and file 15A, D, F, and G.
Okay, I will move those to be received and filed. 23 for Mr. Zine. Mr. Huizar, do you have one?
Cards on 16, correct? Is that
We have
special?
cards on 16. We'll
Great,
call it
thank you.
special for you, too, if you
Yeah,
like.
thank you.
That leaves us 18 through 20 and 24. Anybody wishing to call those special? If not, let's go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, those are approved. If we can go to the next items, please.
Next items are items on the continuation agenda, and those are both items for which public hearings have not been held, 28, 29. 10 votes are required for consideration, and I do believe both of them have cards.
Okay. If there's no objection to consideration, we will call those special and hold those on the table. If we can go to the next 2 items.
Oh, and I'm sorry, Mr. President, the closed session items are 25 and 26.
Okay. We'll hold those on the table.
And then the closed session, the continuation agendas both had cards.
Oh, there's the one. Okay. We'll call those both special for cards from the public. And with that, we will now go back to general public comment. Again, this is for items that are not on the agenda, but nevertheless under the jurisdiction of the council. Speakers are invited to come forward to the podium. We have a clock there to help you guide your 2 minutes. And our first speaker is Sky Anderson. Very good morning, Mr. Anderson.
Good morning. I'm Sky Anderson. I've been president of Los Angeles for 9 years. I want to make an apology. Last year I said that Starline bus was parked in front of the Chinese Theater illegally. I checked the signs and I can't find any proof that it was parked illegally. I don't think it's right that it's there for 6 months every day with a huge advertisement, but that's not my priority. Today I want to talk about, I was wrong in saying it was parked there illegally. I want to talk about homeless children and how they don't deserve to be homeless because of the mortgage crisis in Los Angeles being flooded with homeless families and children. I would suggest that members of the Los Angeles County Council go down to the missions and talk to some of these children, hold them in your lap, realize their plight. They're victims. They don't have a choice. They may get hungry. They may get cold. They have to wait in long lines to get food with their parents. If you're homeless, you're an outcast. You go into a store and people stare at you. And these are the lives these children have to lead. I want to ask Mr. LeBons to do it because Mr. LeBons has a lot of passion whatever he does. I want to ask Mr. Perry to do it because Ms. Perry has a lot of homeless children in her district. I want to ask Mr. Garcetti to take up the cause because I know he's a very compassionate person. Go down and visit with these kids and do it out of love, not out of fear. I'm asking Mayor Villaraigosa to take up this cause because he has the power. He can get this county to do something about it. He can get Mr. Schwarzenegger to do something about it. Mr. Schwarzenegger spent $1,000 for a hotel room. He spent $10,000 for a flight to go to Europe. And he can't seem to help homeless children. I think there's something evil about that. I was in a restaurant about 2 weeks ago, and this child was crying and crying and crying and crying, and the mother ignored her for about 20 minutes. Then they served her a big fat hamburger. That was her passion, eating that hamburger, while that child was desperate for love. I ask you to take up this call. Not homeless people, homeless children.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. Appreciate your comments. Catherine Howard is our next speaker. After that will be Robin Kohler. Good morning.
Morning. Catherine Howard, longtime Southern California resident, members of the City Council. Every year people become more educated about animals and sensitive to the value of protecting all species, passing laws to prevent further extinctions due to land encroachments, pillaging, neglect, and abuse. Despite watching programs on Discovery or PBS, I still doubt whether humans are wholly able to comprehend the true majesty of the singularly extraordinary creature, the elephant. They are highly intelligent, complex, social, and sensitive individuals. In the wild, elephants are migratory, walking 30 to 50 miles a day, forming intricate family structures. The females work together to assist other females with birth. They nurture their young in nursery-like settings. They show humor and express compassion for one another with intense interactions. They grieve for their dead in more than an instinctive way. The reality of their lives in captivity is that many are chained up or chained in all day, year after year. They are enclosed in steel pens, often alone, broken and controlled by fear and intimidation. Elephants are highly evolved, sensitive creatures who should be treated with dignity and respect. Simply put, the LA Zoo does not have the proper space or capacity to humanely care for animals as large as the elephant. In the closing words of Gandhi, the greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments this morning. Robin Kohler is our next speaker. After that is Mariana Tosca. Robin?
Okay. Greetings and good morning, members of the City Council. I'd also like to speak on closing the elephant exhibit at the LA Zoo. How you value yourself is revealed in your treatment of others, and that includes animals. I don't think I need to go into detail about elephant behavior here. the vast space that they need, and how critical it is for elephants to be with their own kind, within their family units, is well documented, and are indisputable facts with which I'm sure you are already familiar. The need for space and companionship is as imperative for elephants as it is for human beings, an inherent, unquestionable, essential aspect of a healthy life, to be with one's own species and within a family group. We know about and have seen the avoidable and immeasurable suffering these sentient creatures endure when they are deprived of their family group and of the spaces they need to thrive, to be happy, healthy, emotionally balanced as they deserve. My struggle is to witness time and time again the insanely cruel, inhumane, and deadly effects of confining elephants in what I call a cuckoo's nest existence. Simply stated, elephants should never be held in captivity ever. I cannot think why or how the LA Zoo could possibly justify keeping elephants in the limited confines available in their zoo, knowing full well the unbearable physical and emotional suffering these loving and high-thinking creatures endure. The space required to provide a proper and healthy habitat in which an elephant can thrive is simply not available at this zoo. It is up to us to stop the pain and suffering of these magnificent beings. We must not continue to invest in, contribute toward, or ignore the agony of elephants by confining them at the LA Zoo. A start to ending the suffering at the LA Zoo means no more elephants. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Mariana Tosca is our next speaker. After that, we'll go from elephants to Mr. Dog.
Thank you so much for pronouncing my name the right way. Good morning. I rise today as a native Angelino to support and applaud Councilman Cardenas' motion to close the LA Zoo elephants exhibit and release the one remaining elephant to a sanctuary. Elephants, by virtue of their peripatetic nature and complex social structures, do not thrive or flourish in captivity. The statistics from our nation's zoos and circuses indisputably prove this. The overwhelming majority of elephants living in artificial habitats have developed foot and joint diseases and mental disorders unique to their captivity. An alarming number of them have suffered and died prematurely at nearly half their natural lifespan. Very recently, one of our own died of exactly these maladies because she was unable to stand and bear her own body weight any longer. Since 1974, 13 elephants have perished at the Los Angeles Zoo, yet in the zoo's promotional materials they state, and I quote, "The Los Angeles Zoo participates in elephant species survival," end quote. I take umbrage at that. Under any circumstance, but particularly with the tenuousness of our current financial crisis, it would be fiscally irresponsible to spend $40 million simply enlarging a substandard space into a slightly larger substandard space that would still fail to provide an appropriate environment where the physical and psychological needs of elephants could be adequately met. This, to me, would be a lateral move and one not befitting a progressive and contemporary city like Los Angeles. 12 zoos in the nation have all recognized that keeping elephants in confinement is an antiquated practice and have closed their exhibits. Finally, I would like to thank all of you for your consideration of this issue, and I'd like to urge those of you who haven't yet agreed to this motion by paraphrasing Mark Twain, "Loyalty to a petrified opinion never once broke a chain or freed a soul." You have the opportunity with this proposal to do exactly that. When the time comes, please vote in favor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tosca. Zuma Dog is our next speaker, and after that will be Bruce Exton. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, and oh my goodness, is Eric Garcetti happy. In case you didn't hear, Obama won. First of all, it's the unveiling of the Obama crib shirt. Now, Zuma Dog did not take a position, but he is the president, and so to all the McCain people, we got to get behind the president. And yes, I know some people are fiscally concerned about things, as they should be, but we got to give this guy a shot. The Obama crib shirt, and it means that Eric Garcetti will most likely be taking...
This is not regarding what's within the jurisdiction of the city.
You cut me off right when I was going to say, and Eric Garcetti will probably be going to a national position, and there will probably be an open seat, and once again, the city attorney putting his foot in his mouth right at the wrong time. And also, I'd like to say that Zuma Dog has been in the Northeast LA area. Boulevard Sentinel, thanks for Tom Topping. And you, of course, I just merely come to Eagle Rock. It is big news. And if you're in town or if you want an autographed copy of the full page article. And Zuma Dog right now, we'd like to say that some of these elections are very, very close. Janice Hahn is on pins and needles, baby. Pins and needles. It's at about 66.2999%. She needs about like 0.10000 of a tenth to win that gang tax. So it's very, very close, people. So I like to say between now and March, Zuma Dog has activated Zuma's action plan, ZAP, and we're going to zap the incumbents this election. I want people to contact me, zumadog@gmail.com. We have city attorney election coming up, city controller, city council, and I'd like to work toward unseating Richard Alarcon and replacing him with Guillermo Huesca. So ZAP, Zuma's action plan, will be uniting all the activists across the city. If we focus, if we put a lot of these side issues to the back burner for now and really focus as activists throughout the community between now and March, we can rock the LA vote. We can make the difference. It takes a focused effort of everybody. ZumaTimes.com. I hope you join me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dog. Our next speaker is Bruce Eckstadt.
Good morning. My name is Bruce Eckstadt, and I'm a long-term constituent of Councilman Tom LaBonge's district. It's nice to finally meet you. I've heard so many wonderful things about you. You're very highly regarded in our neighborhood. I've never spoken before a city council meeting before.
Well, welcome.
Thank you. And I must say that until recently, I've never given elephants much thought at all. But when the long-term terrible plight of Billy the elephant came to my attention, I really felt I wanted to come down here and do something decent and do something that was good. Billy's story is heartbreaking. Elephants are highly social creatures, very much in need of large spaces and interaction with other elephants. And Billy often spends hours on end just bobbing his head up and down in desperation and loneliness. And a zoo is a powerful learning environment for our children. And I ask you, is the quiet torture of an animal what we want to demonstrate to our children? I hope that you'll free Billy from his agony and send him to an animal sanctuary. And I want to thank you all for the opportunity to appear here before you. And it's just good to be here and be a part of this. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is, I think, Sean Emwell Murphy. I'm sorry, sir, would you like to come forward, Mr. Murphy? Did I get that right?
Good morning, City Councilman, everybody.
Good morning.
Barack Obama is in the White House. Yay. Thank you for letting me come down to City Hall today. This is my first time here. I want to talk to you about Proposition 2. I voted yes on Proposition 2 because animals should not be locked up in their mercy. They're God's creatures. Animals should be saved. All animals should be saved, not destroyed. Animals they are God's creatures. They should not be destroyed. I have faith in our new president. I hope he does well in the White House, and that's all I have to say about it. And Martin Luther King and Malcolm X is looking down on this right now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murphy. Noel Weiss is our next speaker, and after that is Chuck Tenon. Good morning.
Morning, City Council. Say what you want about the baby boomer generation. Narcissistic, self-absorbed, but I think last night's election did prove that we raised a good set of kids, because it was the youth, make no mistake about it, it was the youth vote, the kids that we raised, that basically elected Barack Obama and brought the people to the polls. And I think that should be a tribute to all of us of our generation. But more importantly, it brings in and acknowledges that there's a new state of politics. The old liberalism, the old 20th century politics is gone. We're talking about empowerment of the people. We're talking about a practical, progressive, political agenda put forth by politicians and leaders who are positive and proactive. That's what that represents. And I want to give a shout out to all of the people in Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles, who voted for Proposition A. We're close. Maybe the absentee ballots will make the difference, but the bottom line is the effort was put forth by a courageous woman and doing what she thought was right, and that's the kind of leadership I think that we should all basically be proud of. So going forward, I think the theme of Barack Obama, hopefully that will trickle down. Can do. No more, cannot do. And I think that, unfortunately, has been the problem with the City Council. Too much cannot do. Too much finding ways not to do something. We have to focus in on what we can and must do and have the courage of our convictions to be able to at least get the debate. Because out of that debate will come the answers, because that's the way we are. Thank you.
Mr. Chuck Tenen.
Good morning, council members. Last night, the impossible was made possible in this country. President-elect Obama said, "All things are possible." We could see the hope in people's eyes, and we could feel change coming. All things are possible. Council President Eric Garcetti may be packing his bags for Washington soon, and maybe Janice Hahn's song, "Stop the Violence, We Can All Live in Peace," could be sung by the Watts Youth Choir at President Obama's inauguration. And last, Councilmember Herb Wesson Jr. could be our next City Council President, and his fabulous wife could be running for Mark Ridley Thomas's seat. And Obama must have read Janice Hahn's mind in the words he spoke after winning. We must open our doors of opportunity for our kids. And Proposition A is close. All things are possible, which means ending the violence in L.A. is possible if we all come together like we did last night, support her gang violence song. And Councilwoman Janice Hahn delivered a wonderful, heartfelt, expressing her feelings at church services for a victim of a drive-by. In offering her condolences, Janice Hahn brought up the newly formed Watts Youth Choir and a song that they will sing, "Stop the Violence, We Can All Live in Peace." She read the song in its entirety and delivered it. It was so powerful that when she finished, everyone in the church stood up and gave her a standing ovation. Every day at City Council, on TV, and the newspapers, all you hear about is gang violence and how do we stop it. All the hundreds of organizations talk about it, but they don't unite together to do something about it. But the Watts Gang Prevention Task Force will lead the way under Councilwoman Janice Hahn's leadership. When this song is unveiled at City Hall by Councilwoman Janice Hahn and the Watts Youth Choir sings it, it will rock this city. I hope you all support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tenen. Our next speaker is Matt Dowd. Good morning.
All right, thank you. Yes, Eric Garcetti, you got on a winner. I mentioned it when you were in Iowa a few months ago. But look, the gang tax got beat. That's done. The affordable housing scam, that's over. But you know what? It's a great day. You know, I freaking love America because yesterday I was wearing the Obama shirt. And let's hear it. I mean, let's hear a decent round of applause for Barack Obama in the city of Los Angeles. See, and I'm glad Bill Rosendahl got beat down on his thing too, that the Prop 8, see, gay marriage, and it's important because marriage is a means to immigration in America. So you just can't be allowing everybody to wants to get married. Next, what's going to be next? So I'm glad the people spoke out, and that's the people speaking, not me. The people spoke. If Barack's the president, then gay marriage is out. It's eliminated. So that's the people. So please acknowledge that. Because if it didn't, I was going to go to Nevada. I've already been to Reno. I was going to move my business, my Pacific Breeze, from Venice Beach. And here's why it's important, though. No, because the city of Los Angeles still discriminates against an African. And on one hand, Eric Garcetti is trumpeting an African president, but Michael Hunt is an African. He was at Venice Beach promoting African shea butter, and the public liked it, and he was popular, and he made money, he made a living. But your attorneys are telling us that my Pacific Breeze design is not protected by the First Amendment. So my design, it's not protected. And African shea butter promoted by an African American on Venice Beach in a First Amendment zone is not protected.
Thank you, Mr.
So
Dowd. Our next speaker is Michael Carrion, and after that is Candido Mares. Good morning.
Morning. My name is Michael Carrion. Thank you. I lived in the 14th district for the past 20 years. Unfortunately, recently, we've got a new councilman who's taken over. He's come into a community that's already had a tradition of celebrating Halloween on Callis. Yet he's made it his own personal Halloween agenda. Now it's Creepy Callis, sponsored by Mr. Weezer's office. Yet the next morning, the streets were full of trash, the roadblocks were thrown on the floors, the cones were thrown all over the place. Mr. Weezer gets a lot of perks out of this, but yet he doesn't clean up after himself. He allows that just to stay there for the community to see. I personally was there cleaning up the next morning. I personally was there removing illegally posted banners and signs that have Mr. Weezer's name on there. Shame on him. We're not supposed to put anything on public poles, public street signs and everything. Once again, Mr. Weezer's office feels that they can break all the rules and all the laws and do what they want. I'm sure he'll get up and say he had an exemption from somebody. He always does. I've asked last week for Mr. Weezer to give me a call so we can sit down for 15 minutes, but apparently he's too busy. So again, I say, I will be here for the next 2 years expressing my dismay with this kind of stuff in the 14th district over and over and over until he's willing to sit down and they can stop doing things like this. If you're going to put the signs up, take them down. Don't leave them up for the community to have to come and clean up after you, sir. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Candido Mares, and after that we have Sue Catley.
Thank you, Mr. President, council members. Every day that I come here, I try to tell everyone that I'm grateful that I live in the greatest country and the greatest city in the world. And Ms. Hahn, you make this city a lot better because you took on the gang initiative. You didn't have the support that you should have had, and look how close it is. You care more about our children. You care about Latino children. You care about black children. You care about Cheryl Green. You care about Stephanie McCune. You care about all those kids who have died. And you never, ever give up on the other kids who are out in our streets trying to change their lives. You never give up on a child, because no matter what happens with them, if drugs are involved, the gangs, there's something good about all kids. And if you reach in there hard enough, you're going to reach that. So thank you very much, because there's a lot of crocodile tears that come around this council, and that's a bunch of bull. You're the real deal, and we thank you for that. I appreciate that very much, for caring for my kids and other kids. And I also want to thank Mr. Parks. I know that he didn't win this seat in the supervisor district, but I'm grateful that he'll be here come Monday or maybe Friday, because we need him, and he's an honorable man. And Mr. Parks, we're grateful for you, and we're grateful that we're going to have you here for a little longer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sue Catley is our next speaker. And after Ms. Catley is Rhonda Mills. Sue Catley? Is Sue here? Nope. Is Rhonda Mills? Going once, going twice? Okay. That will close our general public comment then. We can go to the items that were called special, please. We have 11 members. We're still awaiting, I believe Ms. Gruhl and Mr. Rosendahl are expected, so as soon as we have a 12th member, we will take up the ordinances. Mr. Reyes, we want to start with the Commissioner?
Yes.
We can take up item 8, and Mr. Aquino, if you'd like to come forward to the table. And, I'm sorry, 1 second. We did have Ms. Mills, if you want to give your general public comment for 2 minutes. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. President, and everybody in chambers. I was outside. I have to catch a plane, so I asked to speak on general comments on the solar bond proposal before you today. And my name is Rhonda Mills.
We can't do that in general public comment, so I'll move that to the solar item. This is for items that are not on the agenda, but if you like your card to reflect the stuff that is on the agenda, we'll move that card for that item.
Yes,
but we can't do that right
just
now.
because I have to leave now.
We can't. It's in violation of the Brown Act, actually. I'm
okay,
sorry.
I apologize.
Our apologies. Sorry. Thank you, Rhonda. All right. We'll return to Mr. Aquino, if you'd like to come forward, and I'd like to recognize the chair of our Plum Committee, Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. And colleagues, before us, Mr. Juan Aquino, who will be a candidate for the South LA Area Planning Commission for the term ending June 30th, 2013. I want to welcome Mr. Aquino to City Hall. He did come before a Plum Committee, and I'd like to ask Mr. Aquino if he can share a little bit about himself, your background, and the way you find yourself coming back in a whole different role, so to speak, given your accomplishments. If you don't mind moving the microphone closer to you, we can hear you better.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here and an honor to be before you. A little bit about myself. I grew up in South LA, a neighborhood called Vernon Central, so I consider that to be my neighborhood. For 29 years, I've been there. My family still lives there. I went to Jefferson High for a year, then transferred out to Pacific Palisades. After that, I went to UC Santa Barbara, majored in sociology and Spanish. Then what I did after that, I said, well, I want to go out there and help my community. So I did social work for a year, providing direct services at the very micro level. Then I said, well, after that, I said, I'm still anxious about making a difference in my community. So I decided that I wanted to work and understand legislation and the legislative process. And so I got myself into Sacramento, working for the Davis administration, running the environmental justice agenda there. After that, I said, well, this environment probably is not for me. I'm too young to be mingling with all the big shot politicians. So I said, but I still want to make a difference in my community. So I came back and I said, it's time to go back to school. Got myself a master's degree in urban planning from UCLA, graduated in 2006. And now, in that capacity, I'm back in my neighborhood to try to make a difference and improve the quality of life of people in South LA.
Mr. Aquino, I first want to congratulate you, colleagues. He is from the Executive Fellowship Program with the California Environmental Protection Agency and served as an advisor, policy advisor, to Assistant Secretary on statewide environmental and social issues. So we talk about South Los Angeles and these environmental and social issues. You can't get any more intense as to the inequities. It's park poor. It has been neglected by this city for decades in terms of planning strategies and planning development. Obviously, it's been an area in which many of our undesirable land uses have been allocated. The rail tracks, the pipelines, the power lines, all the things that impact children's health who don't have a park to play in. And so you have many challenges, Mr. Aquino, but you've got great council members in that area. And I want to thank you for your insight, your support, but more importantly, taking that one step that speaks to the notion of passion. And when you look at these different projects and programs, hopefully we can weigh all the different variables that make the decision which we essentially want, where it is the greatest and highest use for all stakeholders. So thank you so much, and I encourage and I vote.
Thank you.
Ms. Perry is our next speaker.
Hey, thanks very much, Mr. President. I wanted to speak in favor of Mr. Aquino since he's coming from the 9th District, and I have had the chance to work with him. I think he's an excellent choice and uniquely qualified given his background, but most of all given his devotion and his commitment. And I know you're a little nervous today, so I think we'll ask for an aye vote. Okay?
Thank you. Any other members wishing to be heard? If not, let's go ahead and open the roll on the nomination, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Congratulations. We'll send that, like all items today, without objection forthwith. Thank you very much. Next item, call special, please.
Mr. President, you have 12 council members now. Do you wish to take up the ordinances on items 9 and 10?
Yes, please. And if we can put Ms. Gruhl in, she is here as well. If we can take up the ordinances now that were not called special. That was 9 and 10?
9 and 10,
Okay, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Those are both approved, and we'll send those forthwith. If we can go back to item 7.
And that has a card on that item.
Okay. Mr. Dog, on item number 7, Zuma Dog.
Yes, for 1 minute, I'd like to notify the public, the city in a big fiscal crisis, in a big hurry to come up with new fees and things. Here we have, this is going to be to amend the municipal code for unregistered businesses to establish a transaction fee for online credit card payments. Okay, so just so you know, number 7, if I didn't comment on it, it would be open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes. Check item number 7 to clarify limitations for unregistered businesses to establish transaction fees for online credit card payments. Okay, it looks like more money for the city. And with that, I will say that we are in a big financial crisis. And there's a lot of noise right here now, so why don't we just let the rest of my time just be for silence?
All right. If we could ask everybody to please take their conversations outside or to bring them to a minimum, please, for our public comment. Mr. Dog. If you have nothing left to say, Mr. Dog?
Yes, I do.
Okay, please continue.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That will close public comment on number 7. I don't have another card, Mr. Dow. Would you like to speak on 7? Okay, can you fill out another card and come forward on item 7, please?
Thank you, and thanks for recognizing me. Not like Van Nuys a couple of weeks ago, which was a shocker, but we'll deal with that another time. So I'm Mr. Pacific Breeze now from Venice Beach. I'm a registered business. I'm going to be making money for the city of Los Angeles. I'm going to be asking my councilman for help because I need some warehouse space, production space. No, I'm putting people to work. This is a Venice Beach. I got discovered. We got to ship thousands of these. So the way this, and the city attorney obviously doesn't even call me up yet for not being on the topic, but the reason I'm interested in this is this transaction fee for online credit card payments. So they're hitting me already. I'm trying to do it all right. I paid the fees, got all the certificates and everything. Now you're going to hit me with all the online credit card transaction fees. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and open the roll on number 7. Close the roll and tabulate the vote, please.
13 ayes.
That is approved. Next item called special.
Next item is item number 15, and that was call special for cards.
Okay. Mr. Dowd, if you'd like to come back on item 15.
Yeah, I'll take a minute on this one. It's nice to see the great-looking Wendy Gruhl showed up today, too. It's always good to see her. Rent escrow account program, and this is the landlords not keeping their properties up to scratch, and I approve of this program. And it's good to see that these landlords have rectified the problems. And the reason I'm interested, I'll be looking for some commercial space too. So I'm glad the city, spends time on this. This is an important thing, and I'm glad they take the time to do this. So if you're a landlord and you're not keeping your buildings up to code, then you can expect to be in this REAP program until you get everything fixed, and then you'll get the money.
Thank you, Mr. Dowd. That'll close public comment on item number 15. If we can please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. Next item called special, please.
Item number 16, called special by Councilmember Huizar, and I believe there are also cards.
There are. Would you like to take the cards first? Or?
Yeah, yes, please.
Go ahead. All right. Mr. Zuma Dog, then Matt Dowd, and then Russell Brown. Mr. Dog?
Could you call the next speaker and then come back to me?
Mr. Dowd?
Yeah, I like this one. I'll just take a minute. The bringing back Broadway commercial reuse. See, I think we should rename it the Broadway. Eli Broadway now, since everything else is Eli Broad in the city and Grand Ave. So let's start calling it Broadway. Anything Eli Broad wants to do on Broadway, whether it's condos, whatever density, development, these shoebox apartments, you can take this up, but that's really what I want the city to be revitalized, but see, you just rename it Eli Broadway.
Thank you. We had next Russell Brown. Okay.
Thanks. I'm Russell Brown with the Historic Downtown Bid and Downtown LA Neighborhood Council, also a 6-year resident of downtown. We enthusiastically support this motion. This is really taking adaptive use to the next step. We're all aware that residential adaptive use has fueled the redevelopment of downtown, bringing residents, art galleries, businesses, but more importantly, a community that's very involved and activist. This motion will do the same thing for the commercial spaces of Broadway. Broadway is our original sort of soul. It's the entertainment district of LA. The original entertainment district of LA. It is a national historic district. It has very vibrant retail spaces, but there are many challenges, especially in this economy. There's a huge amount of unused and abandoned spaces on the upper floors, and it's surrounded on every single side by revitalized neighborhoods. I've referred to it often as the hole in the donut. This motion will help us fast track the revitalization of Broadway, especially in an economy that has very significant challenges. It's a public-private partnership that helps us leverage the commitment of both the community, the business owners, and government. It will help us create a historic Broadway district that will be home for residents of all ethnicities and all incomes. It will help us create vibrant, diverse businesses, expand the great businesses that are there, and also be attractive to a lot of new businesses, and help us create an entertainment center that will be partly modeled on the Gaslamp District of San Diego, Old Town Pasadena, 3rd Street Promenade, but be unique and be its own creation. All connected to this district by the regional connector, the light rail, the heavy rail, subway to the sea, the bullet train, and a streetcar network. So I especially want to thank Jose Huizar and all the many property owners and community owners who've been involved in their support on this.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you for your activism on this as well. Zuma Dog and then Michael Carrion.
Yes, Russell, he does good things. Unfortunately, I am opposed to this type of project right now. It's a CRA project, so right off the bat, not good. Waste of taxpayer money. Another mixed-use project of this type, Grand Avenue project. Grand Avenue project. This is no time for mixed-use restaurants and bars and these types of things. We're going to really have to bring the economy down for much more of a low-level income types of retail outlets. And I know this is historic. It's supposed to be nice. I don't know, is there any demand for this? I mean, how many mixed-use projects, LA Live, Grand Avenue project, I don't see people coming downtown. Subway to the Sea has not been built. There's not the mass transit down here. People aren't coming to this area. It would be nice, and by the way, of course, fundamentally, I would love the Broadway district. I'm in Northeast LA and downtown all the time, and that would be certainly nice. However, the CRA is going bankrupt through all these projects. The Grand Avenue project, they can't get off the ground, and unfortunately, this is no time for this.
Thank you very much. That will close public comment on this item. Mr. Huizar would like to speak. I'm sorry, Mr. Carrion. He's our final speaker, Mr. Huizar. Thank you, and then we'll close public comment.
Okay, my name is Michael Carrion, and I grew up in Bouldering Temple, which is right on the other side of the freeway. Bring back Broadway. It states here that you're going to have restaurants and mixed use. Can somebody define mixed use? Because when I heard Mr. Huizar on TV on Channel 35, he said he was bringing back 24 restaurants and bars. Mr. Huizar's idea of bringing back Broadway is just to change the homeless and alcoholics to alcoholics with homes. That's all it is. You want 24 bars in a 12-block radius. That's 2 bars per block. We have enough rapid problems with alcoholism and addiction. We don't need 24 more bars. At least, if you were translucent on this, if you were honest about it, you would have put restaurant and bars, not mixed use. On Channel 35, Mr. Huizar was very clear about this. 24 restaurants and bars. But now that it's on paper, it's mixed use. Nobody wants 24 more bars in the community. We have enough bars. We have enough liquor stores. We have a large problem with alcoholism and addiction in this society. We do not need any more. Believe me, I work with alcoholics and addicts every day. I am a recovering alcoholic. You do not need any more bars, especially in a condensed area. They changed the wording around to put other use, mixed use. Put down what the mixed use is. You're leaving it open for interpretation for once you tell us it's okay, then we'll tell you we're putting in bars and bars. And I don't mean the ones that people are behind. I mean the ones that serve liquor.
Thank you very much. Mr. Huizar.
Thank you very much, Madam President. But I think this last speaker was way off topic, but this has nothing to do with bars. But we're actually working to open up the 1 million available square feet of office space on top of buildings in the historic core of the Broadway corridor in downtown LA. We all know the wonders that the adaptive reuse ordinance did for residential use throughout downtown LA. Many old buildings that were sitting vacant for years are now being used as residences, and that's how we see the resurgence of downtown LA with many more people coming to live down here. What this ordinance will do is say, let's do the same for those places that are now designated either commercial or office, so that we make available that vacant space for people to open up offices and other uses. My Bringing Back Broadway initiative that we announced about a year ago, we've done so much. We've now identified $10 million to bring back the streetcar coming down Broadway and connect the rest of downtown. We've got some streetscape plans moving forward. And we've also had monthly meetings where the local property owners, along with city officials, are working to open up and bring back Broadway to the way it used to be, with a lot more activity and uses for everyone. And so this ordinance here will move forward to ensure that those 1 million available square feet on top of the commercial corridor on Broadway will be made available for offices and other uses like that. This 1 million square feet right now is not bringing any revenue to the city. There are no jobs as these areas stay empty, and there are certainly no business opportunities. We want to reverse that, and we want to make sure that we make this space available and get more activity on Broadway. So I urge for your support. We will ask for a task force to be created with a report to come back to council so that we could move forward with the adaptive reuse ordinance. I want to thank Councilwoman Jan Perry for her efforts and leadership that she provided in the residential adaptive reuse policy that made wonders for downtown LA. We've got to now apply that to the commercial spaces in downtown and the historic core. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Huizar, and thank you for your kind words. There are no other speakers in the queue. Madam Clerk, would you please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote?
13 ayes.
Thank you. Next item.
Next item is item 17, and that was called special for cards.
All right. Our first speaker on that will be Mr. Zumadog, followed by Mr. Matt Dowd. Mr. Zumadog, item 17, you're up.
Yeah, they
Mr. Dowd is waiving his right to speak, so he
Yes.
will not speak. It's just Mr. Dog.
Yes, thank you. My name's Zuma Dog. More of this at ZumaTimes.com, and I've been speaking about it for the past 2.5 years. Special event fees. It's money that's taken out of the general fund to pay for parades and festivals and block parties, and they all sound great, but under these hard economic times when the city is raising taxes and property fees and bonds and, tripling trash collection fees, it's unfair to keep asking for these raises and fees and taxes when you are subverting the law. In my opinion, this is a subversion of the law. It's racketeering, it's corruption, and the mayor has joined Zuma. It is very noisy in here. You know what? City Council, they don't have to listen. They don't care. Well, you know when you're going to care? When we vote all of you out in March because you wasted the money in the general fund through these special event fees. Now they're listening. Now they're listening. Guess what? Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa is joining Zuma Dog in calling for a moratorium on special event fee waivers. The only people that haven't come on board is the spoiled brat city councils. You've wasted all the money. We're in a big crisis now. The city's bankrupt. You can't pay for services. You can't pay for anything. And then you say, oh, you got to pay for this and that and that. You triple the trash collection fees and school bonds and this bond and that fee, and it's a big financial crisis, and you just sit and laugh because you sit there with your front-end loaded management contracts and you're taking the money and you're giving it to your friends, and you know there's nothing we can do about it. Well, we're going to do something about it this March 2009. Zuma Dog, take back the city. We're going to reject all of you, except one who I think is worth saving at this point. Possibly two. There's possibly one or two council members worth saving. The rest of you, you're going to throw it on your ass where you deserve because you bankrupt the city.
He is way off topic right now.
Special event fee waivers. Okay, I'll throw myself out for the day. Special event fee waivers. Stop wasting the money. We're in a financial crisis. What's wrong with you people?
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Dowd, you won't be speaking on this item. There are no speakers in the queue. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Next item.
Item number 21, call special for cards.
I have one card on this item. It is again Mr. Zuma Dog. Okay, you have one more minute today, Mr. Dog.
Thank you. And what an important minute this is. If you only listen to Zuma Dog for 1 minute ever, this is the minute. It's about the topic that I am a qualified expert, internationally published author, quality and productivity. Before us now, we have the Quality and Productivity Commission, and they're going to be having a meeting at City Hall. And I urge everybody, I'd like to extend and reach out to City Hall. Dr. W. Edwards Deming, the forefather of quality management, quality and productivity, methods of management of quality and productivity. Dr. W. Edwards Deming. I'm going to repeat the name because there's a lot of noise. Quality and productivity. Dr. W. Edwards Deming saved the city. He's got 14 points, and I write about them on ZumaTimes.com. And if I'm going to go down in history, okay, if I was to pull an Andy Kaufman and say, I'm going to go down in history, it's because eventually this city will be embracing Dr. W. Edwards Deming's 14 points, and it should start here at this meeting. Quality and productivity. Dr. Deming, Zuma Dog, take back the city.
Thank you very much. And if you would please, noise on the sides of the room is rather loud, so if you could take your conversations out in the hallway, that would be very helpful. All right, Madam Clerk, please open the roll on this item. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Next item.
Item 22, call special for cards.
All right, Mr. Dog, you have used up your time for today, although you have filled out a card on that one. But you have used your allotment of time. So for the record, I will read in the name Mr. Zuma Dog on item 22. Any speakers on the queue? There's no speakers on the queue on that item, so Madam Clerk, if you would please open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Next item.
Item number 23, call special by Councilmember Zine.
Mr. Zine.
Can we have the representatives come forward on this matter, please, from the General Services, Fire Department, other agencies involved, and hold the time, please. This deals with Proposition F. The voters of the city appropriated money for public safety and fire stations. And let me give you a quick history. Back in 2000, City Hall was retrofitted, renovated, and they put in fuel tanks and pumps on P1. 8 years later, those are not working. Grateful Hearts, which was an event in the Valley Warner Center honoring firefighters, was held on October 23rd. And discussing the state of the city with some firefighters, I was told that there were a number of fire stations that were built under Proposition F and that the fuel pumps were not working. These are diesel fuel tanks, fuel pumps to fuel the fire trucks. And I verified the information because I questioned how we could have so many facilities for public safety not in operation. And once it was verified, we had a meeting in my office, and I'm still perplexed as to how the City of Los Angeles continues to have a problem, whether it's general services or engineering, when it comes to establishing a facility and putting fuel pumps in, whether it's gasoline or diesel, because the fire trucks now have to go to other facilities to get the diesel fuel, or they use the Voyager card, which the cost is increased if they use the Voyager card, which is a credit card. Also, how many other facilities other than the 7 fire stations in City Hall where they put new fuel tanks in are not in operation? The cost that we're now incurring because of this inconvenience, because the fire trucks have to go to other facilities, if I can get some answers to some of those questions. Also, I was told the fire trucks get between 3 to 5 miles per gallon. Well, if you look at 3 to 5 miles per gallon, And the cost of this, there's an extreme cost to the city, and my concern is public safety. The reason we have fire trucks at fire stations in the communities is a quick response to the emergency. And when they have to go to other facilities to get fuel, they're leaving that particular location. So I don't criticize the fire department. They're the recipient, but whoever did the work, however this was done, there's definitely a problem where we have 7 that I know of facilities plus City Hall, which still isn't working 8 years later. So take it away.
Good morning, Council. My name is Alan Calguch. I'm the Program Manager for the Proposition F Fire Bond Facility. I have with me the Fire Department and General Services. Currently, there are 7 stations that we've installed that are without fueling capability. The shutdowns for the fueling stations are due to a monitoring system defect or a failure of one or more of the secondary containment system. The contractor at the time had installed the only approved fitting that we did have, and that is what we have determined at this point that we're having a problem with. We excavated an area open. We are investigating the item right now and still looking into this. And we are working with the other city departments and the city attorney's office on resolving the issue.
How long have these not been working?
The tanks vary at different times, depending on when they came online. Like I said, the alarm system didn't go into effect automatically on day one. Some of them have been in the service for maybe several months before we ended up having to shut them down.
Well, has it been years or has it been months when the fuel tanks haven't been working? I attended a grand opening at 84 Saturday, and there's a sign on the fuel pumps, no fuel. That's a brand new facility in the Woodland Hills area, but the 7 facilities, how long have we been without the fuel dispensing at those facilities, the longest period of time?
The longest period of time is the first station that came online that had a fuel tank, and that was in, I'm not sure if that's when the time went down. The station came online in 2005. I believe the station didn't stop fueling until about 2006.
So at least 2 years, this station, fire station, has not been able to dispense fuel from the fuel pump. So for 2 years, a period of time, what has the city of Los Angeles done to try and get this thing fixed? So our fire trucks that need this fuel so they can respond to emergencies. It seems ridiculous that we wait 2 years and it's still not fixed.
At the time, the process that occurred is that when the tanks were going into alarm, as normally we would call the contractor up for warranty purpose work, and he went out and he went in and repaired the tank, and the tanks came back up online. Once the tank started to go into alarm several times, we thought that there was something odd. We did call the contractor in. He did propose to us several different fixes, which we then became very close in monitoring how he was doing that fix. Since then, we've decided, again, because we're out of warranty on some of the older stations, that the city had to actually open up to determine what is actually failing or going into alarm on the tanks, and that's what's taking the time.
Okay, so I'm sorry, maybe it's 3 years that these fuel pumps, either 2 to 3 years, these fuel pumps have not been working. So these fire trucks now have to go to another facility or use the credit card to get fuel. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Zine.
Okay, now what does that do to that particular station when the engine or the truck has to go to another facility to get fuel so they can come back and protect that area? Do they have to move trucks up, or do they just leave that and have to run back and forth?
Well, normally what they do, Mr. Zine, is that they do go to other facilities. Most of the other facilities, though, are inside the first end, other city facilities. Rarely do they have to go to other fire stations, which obviously takes them out of their first end. But you mentioned earlier about the use of the Voyager card, and from a public safety standpoint, we've allowed them, we don't preclude them from using the Voyager card. Every one of these stations that we're talking about has retail services or fueling stations in their first end. So by using their Voyager card, yes, it is more expensive, but it keeps them available in that first end.
Well, I'm concerned about the aspect of them getting the fuel. Unlike a motorist who can travel to a gas station in close proximity, they don't have diesel fuel dispensaries all over the place as they do regular gasoline. And it really, I find very frustrating that it's been this long a period of time and it's still not fixed as of today. They're still trying to figure out how they're going to fix it 2 to 3 years after the fact. And if I hadn't learned this from a firefighter, a casual conversation, it may be 4 or 5 years. But again, on the first level of this building, those pumps have not worked in 8 years, and we spent over $1 million putting it together. So the question is, when are we going to get these working for the fire department so they can do the job they need to do without additional expense or additional dollars out of Measure F, Prop F, since it was all part of that initial bond measure the taxpayers paid for.
What we have done right now is we have come up with what we can call a remedial fix. We've already issued our NTPs to the contractor to go and do this on Fire Station 5. We're hoping that he completes the work in about December. At this point, what we're going to do is to monitor that one. If the fix is something that's holding and takes care of our problem, then we will go ahead and implement on the remaining 6 that are out of service.
Okay, what I'd recommend is that this matter be referred to the ITGS committee, and the ITGS committee remain on top of this, because I think if we don't observe and we don't continue to monitor, the firefighters are not going to have this fixed in a timely fashion, as illustrated by the fact that they're still not fixed. And also, how many other city facilities, other than City Hall, have fuel tanks, have pumps, whether it be diesel or gasoline, that are not working throughout the city? I know we have a number of facilities with the police department, DOT, etc. How many of those are not working?
I can't answer other than for Proposition F.
Well, who's here can answer that?
Actually, I think that right now, Angela Sherrick from General Services, I believe that the Department of Bureau of Engineering is actually working on a list currently of other sites that may not be working as well. I know that there has been some discussion with Police Bond to determine whether or not they have sites that are in the same predicament as the fire sites.
So we have contract management that's supposed to oversee to make sure these projects are done on time, within budget, and done properly. It appears that there's a problem somewhere in the system where the fuel tanks are not working as scheduled, as installation, and they're multi-million-dollar installations that we're talking about. But again, I go back to the same situation. 8 years ago, the pumps that were put in, the fuel tanks were put here at City Hall, have not worked in 8 years. And if we don't jump on this for the fire department, it may be 8 years before that's fixed, or maybe 10 years, or I may just ignore it and keep on using the Voyager card in the other facilities. So other than this particular situation, a report back all other city facilities that have fuel pumps that aren't working, a comprehensive report, and I'm sure there's multiple facilities. Because when we use that Voyager card, we're paying a retail price. When we gas up or fuel with diesel at a city facility, we get that fuel at a discount price. So it's costing us more money to provide the fuel, and we face a major budget deficit. This doesn't help the budget deficit with what we're doing. Again, when fire trucks came in from Northern California to fight the fires, I know we had fuel pods for them, which is great, but the fact of the matter is our safety personnel have to have this fuel so they can get to the destination and not run short of fuel. So that's my request, Mr. President. If there's any other questions from my colleagues, but that this referred to ITGS on this information, and also on the other question on other fuel dispensing facilities that the city operates and the condition of those. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. LeBon is our next speaker.
Mr. Zion, thank you for bringing it to our attention. Alan Kawaguchi, I know your work, long time with the Bureau of Engineering. We want you to get tough on this. We want you to find a way to solve it. We want, because you want it solved. Right. And Chief, I know they're always on the radio in their fire trucks. If they have to go a little out, that's the challenge that they have right now. But sometimes they're absolutely rolling, and it's faster, even if they're in the house. I know this is greatly improved from years past, but it is disappointing. But I think you've got to find a way to do it. And Alan, you're the person in charge that we look forward to seeing a result here. And trying to figure out what happened last time, correct it, make sure we're whole on it, and move forward to make sure, because I think the planning was, and it went back to when fuel storage was a very big hot issue, if I could pardon the pun, under Mayor Reardon's time, when they talked about consolidating fuel locations, and also for emergency preparedness of having the capacity in the future to have that fuel in strategic spots throughout the city. So can I count on you, Alan?
Yes, Councilman LeBon. We do have, like I said, a proposed remedial fix. We're already implementing it currently. We should have an answer to that, and once we're confirmed that that's going to work, we will start to implement it probably by January to correct all the rest of the stations.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Zion, for bringing that to our attention.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief Fry is coming around the horseshoe, and I'm hoping he gets over here before I finish speaking, because we still, up in Mandeville Canyon and in Brentwood Hills and Mountain Gate and Bundy Canyon and Mount St. Mary's, are forever grateful to the fire department for their quick handling of a fire that could have gotten out of control like it did 30 years ago and blow right into Mandeville Canyon. So the first question I have is, I know that we put fire trucks up there in Mountain Gate. We put 20 in Mandeville Canyon, 20 in Bundy Canyon. And I know we have some issues with Fire Station 5. But first I want to do a shout out and thank the fire department, okay? Because you saved lives and you saved property, and you made a hard decision from 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the morning to bring those choppers over, and we don't have night gargles for our own people here in the city, and we're going to do fundraising for that. And I want us to go through the budget process and know exactly how much money that's about. I heard $600,000, but we'll get to that another point. How are our fire truck issues in the 11th District, and how were they impacted by this when you brought a lot of fire trucks over to the west side on that morning? Any part of this discussion on that?
As far as the fire itself, I don't have any detailed information on how they handled fueling issues, if that's your question.
Yeah.
I know that we have fuel sites that we've identified in those areas, and when the need came to fuel, they were able to break away at the right time and fuel up their trucks.
Okay. And I know Chief. This chief here was the one that was the man on the ground there who led the battle there. You felt comfortable that the fire trucks were all together?
Yes, sir. What we do is in the city, in our supply and maintenance division, we have fuel trucks that will come out. That way we don't have to take the trucks away from the firefight. We're able to get our people up into that area.
Chief Fry, would you like to sit down at the table and be heard better? I don't know if everybody can hear.
Would that be all right?
We can make room.
Oh, great. Okay. If we could just give him a spot over there.
I think that would be more appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, for that.
Thank you. The question was, were we impacted with this type of situation during the fire we had in Sepulveda Pass? The answer is no. And because through our logistics section, through our supply and maintenance, we have fuel pods and fuel trucks that we will bring out. We keep the fire trucks in place during the firefight. We will take the fire truck up to them, fill their apparatus so they don't have to leave.
Good.
At no point were we in any danger. We foresee that when we make our decisions, and we call for that real early. So this situation had nothing to do with our emergency.
And Fire Station 5, are we okay with that in Westchester?
Yeah, Fire Station 5, we are working on it. Our fire prevention people are looking into the situation, and I know they're working with the Prop F people to make sure that everything's up to speed.
Okay. Well, that's very important to us, and I just want to thank you again. And we do want you to come back and talk about the night gargles and the need for that, because if we hadn't had the support of the county on that issue there, from 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock, the most critical moment, are you happy how the county coordinated with you on that?
One of the things we want to come back and also talk about is we did bring in people from as far away as South Orange County, Dana Point, and as far as Ventura to come in and fight that fire in Sepulveda Pass. We are in the process of recouping all the money. We did fill their fire trucks with fuel. We are in the process of doing that through their finance people, so all that is being documented, and we're ready to go with that.
And the last question is the CERT program, which Ernie Franco up in Mountain Gate and
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. This is just about the fueling stations.
All right, thank you. Just was happy to do this, though. Thank you.
Mr. Zine?
I just wanted to, once again, this is no criticism of the LA City Fire Department. LA City Fire Department provides a service. General services, engineering, contract, administration, they're responsible to provide the facilities, the equipment, so they can do their job. So somehow in the process, when we have this many facilities and we get a report back that there's more facilities, fuel dispensing facilities that are not operating, there's a serious problem somewhere, whether it's engineering, or building and safety, general services, somewhere, somehow, we need to have that equipment working for the city personnel. And there's no excuse to wait 2 to 3 years to get it working. And if the contractor's not delivering that service, then maybe we shouldn't pay them, and we should use the city attorney and do something about it. Because if it was your private residence and you had a fuel tank there, you'd want it working. Yeah, we can send people out to other facilities, we can use the Voyager card, but the fact is we have it there for the fact of the public safety that these folks do. And again, no criticism of the fire department, but the other support functions of the city of Los Angeles need to measure up and do what they're supposed to do so we can keep things moving. And again, I'll go back to 8 years ago. The pumps aren't working, and they have not worked here in City Hall in 8 years, and there's no intention of fixing them. I don't want that same thing to happen to the fire department.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Let's go ahead and...
Mr. President, Mr. Zine asked that this be referred to ITGS.
And there's no objection to that, so that will be...
But I'd like to have that referred with a report back to them within 60 days of the process where they are on the repairs, and then the analysis of how many pumps aren't working citywide.
Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and, if there's no objection, refer that to committee. Thank you very much. Next item called special, please.
Next item, Mr. President, is item number 28, and that was called special for cards.
Okay. Item 28. We have one card on this. Mr. Zumadog. Oh, you're out of town, sir. So we'll make sure that's in the record. And we have this item before us. Mr. Huizar, I know, and Ms. Gruhl had looked at this. Okay. Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you. Mr. Miller? Just on personal perspective, anytime we're dealing with the city charter or constitutional amendments, anything like that at any level of government, kind of makes me nervous because, unfortunately, every time we have language, whether the language is a couple of hundred years old or if the language has only been amended a year ago, there's always interpretations and potential for misinterpretations. So could you please express to us an example of what kind of program that this performance audit would be able to be done on, and then what kind of activity in an elected office that clearly is not subject to a performance audit of a controller?
The only program that has been identified in an elected office that would fall under this definition is the Gang Reduction and Youth Development Program in the mayor's office. Of course, clearly the mayor made it clear when he proposed taking that over that that would be subject to audit. But that is the only program that has been identified that would today, or under this definition, be subject to audit. Something that clearly would not be subject to audit, for example, would be if a council member established goals or wanted to achieve a certain outreach in the community or certain whatever relative to community services, that would not be subject to audit. What would only be subject to audit are programs with specified goals and objectives and programs that are either established by ordinance or are transferred from another department.
Okay, so let me, can you please help me understand this? What if, for example, Councilmember X has a motion through council and they want to have a health fair? Obviously, there's going to be city resources. It's at a city park, for example, and various departments come with booths, etc. Maybe they have to block off some streets or a street and have LADOT involved or what have you. Would that activity be subject to a performance audit because it came through via a motion?
It would not, because that would not be a program established by ordinance, or it would not be something moved from an operating department into an elected office.
Okay. And then what should give us comfort to believe that because city council offices, the workers, the lights, the phones, everything's paid with city funds, because part of this talks about paid with city funds. How are we sure that that isn't going to be subject to a misinterpretation or a future interpretation of future controllers? Because whether it's the next controller or a controller, 2-3 controllers down the road, they all have a mind of their own, and obviously somebody maybe 3 controllers down the road wasn't even around hearing these discussions, so that they may have a different interpretation. So how do we know, or how are we sure that we are definitely not in danger of it being interpreted that because council office salaries are paid for with city resources, city funds, then that's their performance is subject to a performance audit.
Well, again, I would assert that that would not fall under any of the definitions here in the proposed charter amendment. That is not a project, function, or entity with established goals and objectives. That's the normal course of business. It is also not established by ordinance, and it's not something that has been moved from an operating department.
So what do you mean by established goals and objectives? Where are we getting that reference from? Because obviously any entity that has staff and has activities and is trying to do something, there's goals and objectives. I mean...
Correct. That definition comes from generally accepted or government auditing standards. But remember, it's not just that definition. It has to be coupled with a program that is established by ordinance or a function that is moved from an operating department.
Okay. So what is the trigger language that creates that tie that you just described to us?
Again, on page 1 of the Charter Amendment, definition in the definitions, one is activities, projects, functions, or entities with established goals and objectives that are funded by city resources or receive state or federal grant funds, and either activities, projects, functions, or entities that are established by ordinance, or activities, functions, or entities that formerly were housed in one or more departments. So it has to be a combination of definition number 1 and either 2 or 3.
But not all of them. It doesn't have to be all of them together. Like, you know, like,
No.
in other words, it has to be inclusive A, B, and C, and therefore, or is it A or B or C, and then that element can be subject to a performance audit?
It has to be A and B, or A and C, or it could be A, B, and C. But it can't just be A. It must be A and B, or A and C.
Okay, so it has to be 2 of the 3, or by default, obviously, all 3 includes 2 of the 3.
Right.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Sure.
Mr. Alarcon.
I share the exact same concern that is being raised by Mr. Cardenas, and that has to do, the word that concerns me is activities, and I don't see the connection to the requirement of ordinance except in section, what section?
Section 1.
Section 1K, and in subsection 2, it says what you said, Mr. Miller, but in subsection 1, it's wide open. It doesn't say by ordinance. It just says activities. So theoretically, if a controller could want to audit my street furniture fund, or I don't see where it's prohibited in this ordinance.
Well, again, let me read you the language. And this is the definition of a program that can be audited.
No, I wasn't talking about program. I was talking about activities.
But again, this language only provides the authority to audit programs.
But it says activities.
In the lead-in in K, it talks about may conduct performance audits of programs administered by one or more departments or programs as defined by an elected city office. For purpose of this subsection, program is defined as activities, et cetera, and something either established by ordinance or moved from an operating department.
Well, I see that. Here's my concern. I just don't understand why we can't clarify it further.
Again, I mean, that's certainly up to the council. I think that the attempt here was to draft language that really defined what some people perceive to be a hole in the charter, which is the ability to audit programs that are not part of the normal everyday functions of elected officials.
Colleagues, this issue arose relative to an audit that was requested by the city controller for workers' compensation at the city attorney's office. But the fact of the matter is the bulk of workers' compensation programs is in personnel. So why was it the controller wanted to audit the city attorney's office, but not the personnel department, which manages the workers' comp program? So yeah, okay, but the point is, it just doesn't feel right, and so that's why. So I want to be careful that what we are trying to do is avoid a situation where an elected official is being audited by another elected official in any way, shape, or form. And I understand I don't have a problem with audits, per se. I was the vice chair of the Joint Legislative Audit Committee for the state legislature. I have no problem with an elected official being audited. But I think it should not be audited by another elected official. And that's a concern I have. So I'm going to vote against this, not because I don't recognize the joint effort here. I just have a concern that the language needs to be tightened up, and I'm not confident that it's been tightened up enough.
Mr. Weiss?
Thank you, Mr. President. I pushed my button because I heard Mr. Cardenas's questions and then Mr. Alarcon's questions and your answers, Mr. Miller. And the impression I got from hearing your answers was that actually there is an express effort in this charter language to limit the, let's call it the expanded scope that this amendment will provide. Am I understanding you correctly? I mean, there's an express effort to limit this to non-charter generated functions. Hold my time, please.
That is true. My only concern is the word limit. I mean, it depends on your perspective. The city attorney...
Okay, confine. Define.
Defines it as essentially non-core functions, as...
No, not non-core. I think it defines it as non-charter functions, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, why is that? Because I was listening to Mr. Cardenas and Mr. Alarcon's questions. Why is that important? Or why is it drafted that way?
The intent here is to provide a mechanism to audit programs that don't necessarily need to be within an elected office, and in essence, transparency for whether it's GRID, whether it's FMIS, had that ended up in controller, whether it's a similar distinct entity that is placed in an elected office. The intent is to provide an ability to audit that, but to not get into a situation where you have one elected official auditing the overall performance of another.
No, but answer my precise question. Why has this been drafted so as to avoid getting into charter granted areas? I mean, because what I get out of that is that there's actually a theory of constitutional government that we have within the charter, and this amendment is not intended in any way to upend or interfere with that. Am I reading it correctly or not?
That's right. There's certainly the separation of powers concept in the charter that this is intended to respect.
Okay, and how does it do that? I'm trying to get you to be express, so can you tell me how it does that?
It does that by limiting the ability to audit elected officials in their conduct of their day-to-day business. It restricts it to only distinct programs that are operational in nature.
And that's what Mr. Cardenas and Mr. Alarcon are, in a sense, that's the concept certainly Mr. Cardenas is asking about, right? Am I on the right track here?
Yes, correct.
Now, can I look at get the language? You can hold my time for a second, Mr. President. This is tell me, in the language, in order for the... did you have the language? In order for an audit to proceed, two things need to obtain. There are two clauses. I'm sorry. Could you just... Ms. Patakis, could you give me that?
It's right here, Jack. This one. For the record, Teresa Stanis, City Attorney's Office.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I called you by a name which you had when I first met you.
That's okay.
I apologize. Could you explain how how this works. Section K1 and then 2 and 3. I guess it's the word either. If you could explain how that works.
Yes. Under this section, the existing charter is expanded to allow the controller to conduct performance audits of elected office, actually I should say programs within elected offices, provided that, and a program is defined as an activity, function, project, or entity with established goals and objectives that are funded by city resources or receive state and federal grant funds. If the program meets that criteria, then in addition, it must also meet a second criteria, and that second criterion is either 2 or 3. So it must additionally be an activity, project, function, or entity that are established by ordinance, or an activity, function, or entity that formerly were housed in one or more departments or appointed offices that are transferred to an elected city office. So would you like me to give an example?
Sure.
So if you recall, I believe it was last year, there was an effort to consolidate the gang programs, which were housed in departments, some of them created by ordinance, and through an ordinance process, consolidate those programs and transfer them to the mayor's office. There was some concern by the controller and some council members that just because these programs, which were previously subject to performance audit, that just because they were now being consolidated to facilitate coordination of those resources, should now not be subject to performance audit, that performance auditability should remain. And so this language seeks to accomplish it in those limited circumstances.
So then my question, and Mr. Cardenas, if you could just listen to this, because I think this is what you were asking about, and if it's not, I apologize. Section K2 refers to activities, projects, functions, or entities that are established by ordinance. Now, I read that to actually say activities, projects, or functions, or entities that were not established by charter. I mean, I read not established by charter to be the intent of Section 2. Am I on the right track or wrong track in understanding that?
That is my understanding of the intent, Jerry.
Mr. Cardenas, am I on the right track? Is what you were asking about?
Yes, that is the intent.
Okay, so if the intent of Section 2 is to require this additional thing to obtain, which is that the activities, projects, functions, entities were not established by charter, then why doesn't it say that? Why doesn't it say the not established by charter language so that it is clear that it's not established by charter rather than established by ordinance? Because I imagine there are occasions where matters are referred to both in the charter and in an ordinance. Why doesn't it carve out the charter aspect so that that's clear?
I believe
and is there a way to make it more clear, or am I just reading too much into this?
Well, this was the language that was presented to the committee and reflected in our instructions, but yes, we think that we could make it more clear, and I can confer with my co-counsel here, and we can see if we can come up with additional language to clarify that for you.
And I'd like to hear that, because my understanding here is that the intent of this is not to interfere with the constitutional parameters of the government set up in the charter, and if that's the case, then it seems to me it's useful to make sure that we draw bright charter lines in this amendment so that this amendment doesn't provide an opportunity to sort of bleed the charter aspects out of it. Yes? No? Maybe?
Sorry, yes.
So what would you suggest what would make that more clear?
Well, language that we're going to look at is clarifying that these are additional activities, projects, and functions than what is already assigned by charter. And just because today's the final day to act, I want to be very certain about that language and make sure it doesn't have unintended consequences of expanding it rather than clarifying and just narrowing it. So I would like to just confer and then present that later in this meeting.
Yeah, you can take your time, so you don't have to do it off the top of your head. And so I'll thank you for giving me extra time, Mr. President.
Thank you. You welcome Mr. LaBonge.
Could I have a representative of the controller's office here?
There is a request by Councilman Cardenas to hold this on the table while they adjust some language. So after the other folks speak, we may want to do that.
What do you suggest, Mr. President?
No, I can still answer the questions, but if they want to work out some additional language, we can ask the questions and then hold it on the table before we take a vote, if that would assist in expediting this. But Mr. LeBon, you're up for questions.
Mr. Cervantes, you're the Deputy City Controller for Los Angeles. You've had a good career in the city of L.A. You're a great General Manager over El Pueblo. Tell us what this means. What does this mean to the people of Los Angeles? What do you envision the future, whoever the controller may be?
Well, depending
because
on...
are you in an exempt position?
That is correct.
So you may not be there, whoever the new controller may be, if the controller...
Yes, depending on what the next controller would want.
But you're still civil service, right?
That is correct.
You could fall back in an AGM.
Correct.
Got it. Go to water and power, be happy.
The intent of this is really a clarification that we believe as to what was the intent of the charter reform, and that is to allow a level of transparency for the controller to be able to audit all programs within the city of Los Angeles as performance as well as fiscal.
Okay, so I remember that you said that that was the intent of the charter reform.
That is our understanding. This is a clarification to what we believe the intent was.
But the city attorney who was there was the attorney for the mayor of Los Angeles at the time, I believe. Was that correct?
Not at the time. I was not the counsel to the mayor, but I was on the mayor's staff assigned to charter reform. The record's very clear that our office does not see an ambiguity, and we've interpreted the existing charter to not permit performance audits of other elected officials or any programs in their offices. As you know, the controller has challenged that interpretation, and rather than having a court resolve it, this issue's been brought to the council for the council to resolve it through a charter amendment.
But so just to get it straight, you believe there's an interpretation necessary from the charter revision of what the people said years ago, and Teresa, you were the staff member for then Mayor Richard Riordan, who kind of reviewed this, and you think that was not the intent. I just want to see the conflict here.
Well, not only that, but we did go back as part of this process and actually review the videotapes from the elected charter commission meeting. We read the record from the appointed commission. There is a disagreement among the chairs as to what they specifically intended, but we think the record that was made was clear.
Okay, let me just ask the Deputy City Controller, you've got an idea what the City Council does. What would you audit? Let's say, what would you audit at Town LaBonge? Just to give me an idea.
There are no programs within the city council offices, so there would be no reason for a performance audit to be performed at any council offices.
What if I have a Griffith Park Resource Board, which is a small group we try to get together? What if I have a sister city program that I work with the mayor's office to try to run? What if I do help support the athletic events in the city? What about that? What is a program? What's a program? Define a program.
Define a program. I'll defer to Farid Safar, our chief auditor, to define
a program. I'll yield to the fine councilman of the 5th District.
Yielding to Mr. Weiss.
I just want to say that my answer your question directly, my reading of this, but you guys are lawyers and you tell me if I'm wrong, is that if a council member has sort of an adjunct sister cities program that he or she operates or monitors or participates in, that's not one of these core functions under the charter. That's not a charter designated function. I view that as that's funded by other entities. That seems auditable. Yes, no, maybe.
The controller. Thank you, Mr. Weiss. I appreciate that, but I want to hear the controller.
Yeah, Farid Safar with City Controller. Program is defined as any activities, function, entities with established goals and objectives that are receiving city resources.
That means pay of employees. If I want my employees to go pick up trash on Hollywood Boulevard,
right. But I don't believe you have established goals and objectives for that type of activity. If you have a program that you have a goals and objective established and are being used, city resources are being used to accomplish those.
Okay.
Those are subject to audit.
Is there a dollar cap at all at anything? And what do you do audits now? What is the minimum audit that you do an audit on?
Well, obviously, we don't have resources to audit every single program. We use some sort of risk assessment to identify significant activities, significant programs.
Would it help to clarify it, Mr. Miller, if you picked a dollar value that said anything under X?
No, I don't believe it would. Again, to be clear, Mr. Labange, on your sister city program, and yeah, Mr. Weiss is correct. That's not in the charter. However, your sister city program is not established by ordinance, and it is not a function that is currently in an operating department that's being moved to your office. So it would have to, again, either it be defined as a program and be established by ordinance or be moved from an operating department.
Right. Right. All right. I'm still not clarified. I'll listen to other colleagues, and then we'll go. Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Mr. Miller, as always.
Ms. Gruhl?
Thank you very much, Mr. Zine. I want to make sure that everyone, and I know it's been said, but let's get this clear. Currently, the city controller has the authority to audit for financial purposes, anything in the city of Los Angeles, right?
Correct.
She has a financial audit. Okay.
Yes.
So, just so everyone understands that. So, and Mr. Labange, with the Sister City program that receives city funding, the controller can currently audit that from a fiscal perspective. And so if there are any improprieties or problems or changes, I'm not saying there is there, but that can be done under the existing city charter. The only thing we're talking about is a management audit, which was new authority given to the controller during the last charter change. Performance audit, excuse me. I said performance audits. Performance audits. And that, yes, you know your charter. Performance audits. And there, as alluded to from the city attorney's office, this issue came to being because of a difference of opinion as to what the intention was, the description, and that there could have been confusion as to that, and to clarify that. And both of the president of the appointed and president of the elected had different ideas, and even maybe some of our commissioners may. So this is to clarify it. So, and I think I understand, not a lawyer, but understand where Jack was coming from in this charter. I think the confusion comes by the fact that when you go from 1 to then 2 and 3, because it says and or either. So people are concerned what that will mean. I don't have concerns because I think auditing, that transparency and all that is critically important. I understand their concern about political potential issues in the future. But if you could just clarify, and maybe this is the city attorney, and no disrespect to the controller's office, but this is going to be what the city attorney and CLA are telling us it is going to be, and you may disagree with that, but that they're giving us the advice on this item. Could you please describe, in the instances that you kind of are hearing from people, the fact that it says and either means you cannot just have a program that I've established, a health fair that I have every year, and that's a program within my office. You could not do a performance audit on that based on the fact that it is not established by ordinance, and it was not previously, it was not done by another department at the time. And so people are getting stuck on that item 1, the legal language, and this happens all the time in planning issues and others where people don't have the connection to the item before. So if you could just explain very clearly what that and either means so people feel comfortable in that item.
Okay. In order to be subject to a performance audit under this section, the program...
Hold my time, please. Sorry.
The program must first meet the definition of number 1, which means that the program must have goals and objectives, stated goals and objectives, and it must be funded by city resources or receive state or federal grants. If it meets that criteria, then it must additionally meet a second, which is either number 2 or number 3.
Okay. That was very clear, and you did that very well as a lawyer, I want to tell you. And so, colleagues, that's what they're saying is that if you're looking just at 1, you're concerned because it doesn't impact, you don't understand that 2 and 3, but they have to either be established by ordinance or, as Mr. Weiss said, the kind of other side of that are not part of the charter. whatever language that may be. Or they have to be something transferred from another department, i.e. the mayor's office receiving all the gang-funded programs, which we included, and the mayor agreed to the auditing of that. But number one cannot exist without it being something that is created by ordinance, or two, it being transferred from another department. And my hope is that everyone understands that part of it, that it's not, unless it meets those others, it is not going to be in a performance audit. It can still be a fiscal audit that occurs now and today. That can happen whether we change the charter or not. And so I stand in support of this because I believe, and maybe, Mr. Weiss's amendment and whatever the city can work out, be fine with that as well, and that item, because I think it meets the same spirit of that. And I think I get from the CLA and the city attorney that that's the same intent, unless you're going to tell me differently now.
Actually, yes, I'm glad we put that on the record to clarify how these provisions work together. I think Mr. Councilman Weiss was going to a slightly different question, and that was if it's already a charter-created function or duty. He wants to make sure that number 2 is clarifying that the council can't be redundant and just create that by ordinance in addition to what has already been created by charter. And so that this is saying that this is in addition to what are already assigned by the charter.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, now there's a proposal. We have 4 speakers, Mr. Reyes, Ms. Hahn, Mr. Cardenas, Mr. Alarcon, that we table this at this moment and see if the language can be worked out, and then we'll come back with those 4 speakers. So if the parties can do that, we'll put this on the table, hold this on the table. We'll come back to Mr. Reyes, and hopefully they can get this language worked out. So that'll be continuing as they caucus to come up with something hopefully workable. Okay, the next matter, please.
Next item is item number 29, and that was called special for cards.
Number 29. There's quite a few cards on number 29. Eight, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. There's 18 cards on number 29. 18 cards. Was there a public hearing on this? There was no public hearing on this. So there's 18 cards. So shall we start with the public comment? Mr. Labange?
Yes, and just a suggestion, and I do this in committee, if you have more than 5 cards, you want 1 minute a person for
There's 18 cards.
If you need a little more, give it to them.
That'll turn out to be about 30 minutes. So we'll start with the public speakers, 1 minute each. We'll start with Sue Catley from the California Solar Energy Association. Sue Catley, not here. How about from the Sierra Club, Bill Corcoran, followed by Zuma Dog. Oh, Zuma Dog's out of time? Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, Bill Corcoran, Senior Regional Representative of the Sierra Club. I appreciate the opportunity to comment on the proposed solar initiative. The ballot language as provided by the Office of City Attorney provides reasonable and sensible changes that substantively address the opportunities for improvement that the Sierra Club has previously identified. This proposed program is but one element of the city's comprehensive solar plan. We again ask that the city soon release its comprehensive solar plan. The challenge before the city will be to ensure both through its management of this city solar program and other actions that the comprehensive solar plan is funded and rigorously implemented. The city should also continue to move forward to fund the energy-related retrofit work envisioned by the Los Angeles Apollo Alliance, of which the Sierra Club is a member. The Sierra Club asks the City Council to move forward, placing the initiative as provided by the City Attorney onto the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Soledad Garcia, followed by Billy Hayes.
I'm very pleased to be here on this most historic day. We all agree that the greening of Los Angeles is necessary and is good, but you are urged not to vote to place the solar initiative on the March ballot. The ratepayers, neighborhood council, stakeholders were not included in any dialogue with DWP, the council, or city officials. As per, obviously, the council, the rush to place the initiative does not take into consideration the added financial hardship of the people, and it would be a struggle for the middle class. Recall that there are many additional rate increases that are coming in January. A thorough study, investigation, and analysis should be made. Now is not the time for another increase. Additionally, I see that there is no further time, and I would like to add that it not be placed on the ballot.
Thank you. Billy Hayes, followed by Christine Lee.
Yes, my name is Billy Hayes. I'm with the Foothill Trail District Neighborhood Council and the DWP Committee. I'm against this being put on the ballot because, again, it hasn't been, the neighborhood councils had no input in any of this stuff. We're coming to the very end, and from my understanding, it's not going to be bidded out for anything, and so it's going to be very expensive. We as ratepayers pay enough as it is, and we don't need any added cost being put up on us at this time. The commissioners hadn't had a chance to air out on it. The Energy Environmental Committee hasn't even had a chance to vet this thing, so it's kind of heartbreaking to see that the city council would even go as far to think about putting something on the ballot like this and not even had the opportunity to really go through it and see what the effect is going to be on the ratepayers and how it's going to affect the ratepayers in total. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Christine Lee.
Thank you. I've always wondered how it feels to be out here, but my name is Christine Lee, and I'm a community liaison for Korean Community Culture Center. Also, I represent the north area of Neighborhood Council. I am here because I'm going to regret if I don't say this. To fulfill my duty, I wanted to say that we do agree. I also agree the greening of LA is necessary. But no one opposes this for clean power, and everybody knows this because I've been working on zero waste outreach for over a year. And now they're coming to understand that they can be a proud American by, partnering up with government initiatives to be, they can be. I just got 2 seconds, so I just want to say, please hold your initiatives.
Thank you, ma'am.
We don't want this on the ballot in
Christine
March.
Lee, thank you. Jessica Espinoza, followed by Richard Reyes. Jessica Espinoza, followed by Richard Reyes. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. I'm representing Homeboy Industry, Father Boyle's solar program. I'm a student in East LA Skills Center. I believe that the solar work should not just go to one specific place, but should be spread out through the Los Angeles community. I don't believe that it should be taken from our community. I think that we should have a part in making this planet greener. Excuse me, I'm nervous. I just want to take this opportunity to say that our community, our Hispanic communities need these jobs in order to make, we
Just
need
take
these,
a deep breath and relax. We're here as your friends. Thank you.
we need these jobs, and I ask you to please consider it before taking it away from us. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, is that clapping for Homeboy Industries or for the speaker?
Homeboy Industries.
Okay. Richard Reyes. Okay.
Good morning. My name is Richard Reyes. I'm here to represent Homeboy Industry and the East LA Skills Center. I'm a certified installer, and I don't see why there should be any reason why our job should be excluded to one party in particular, when there's a lot of people like me that need this opportunity to become a better man and a better person and a better woman, to provide for our children. We have enough in our lives to be there has to be a better way for us. Our community needs these jobs. There's enough laws already. We don't need no more laws. We need jobs. And without those jobs, we will not become better men and provide for our families. The East LA Skills Center and Homeboy Industry has provided us with that opportunity to become better men in this community and become somebody in this cruel and vicious world we live in. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Buvano, followed by Elsa Barboza.
Hi, I'm Mary Luevano, Policy Director with Global Green USA, and I just want to thank the Council, DWP, and the Mayor's Office for their work over the last few weeks to establish LA's place on the solar map. And I especially want to thank the Council for some of the very good questions that you asked at last week's Council meeting, which were very important. I just want a little bit of background. Global Green is an environmental nonprofit. We've been working on solar advocacy for over 12 years, and in fact, 3 years ago, we released a report showing that LA could do at least 80 megawatts of solar on city rooftops, affordable housing, and schools. And so we've been a long-time solar advocate, as have many of our environmental colleagues. There have been some questions about this particular initiative, but I want to assure you all that we wholeheartedly embrace an aggressive solar plan for the city, and moreover, a comprehensive solar plan for the city. We'd like to see solar on all rooftops. We'd like to see it on city and public buildings, or public buildings funded with city dollars, like affordable housing, where there's a strong public investment. If I can have one more minute.
No, you're done. You're done. Thank you. You have 1 minute to speak, and we have the next speaker, Elsa Barboza. We've got to be fair with everyone on the time.
Good morning, council members. My name is Elsa Barbosa, and I'm with SCOPE, and we're a grassroots and organizing organization in Los Angeles and focused in on South Los Angeles. So our members have experienced moving from the south of the United States to South LA to get union jobs, to better their lives, to get some of these manufacturing jobs, where it was Bethlehem Steel, Goodyear, etc. So we've also experienced the last 30 years of disinvestment in South LA and in the inner city, and we'd like to see a change, and that's why SCOPE supports this initiative. It's because it lays a strong foundation for union jobs in this new green economy. Any job is not a good job. Union jobs is the answer to addressing poverty in Los Angeles. We also support the training academy piece into solar and maintenance jobs. I also want to let you know, put it on the ballot. It's a good thing for Los Angeles. SCOPE just went door to door and talked to 9,000 people and said the government should take a proactive role in the green.
Joseph Saranto, followed by Candido Morez.
Thank you very much. Good morning, members of the City Council. Joe Serrato, representing the Labor's International Union of North America. Hello, Ms. Hahn. We're here to recommend that this ballot measure be amended to include the Labor's Union and other crafts. That's our number one recommendation. Our second recommendation is that this solar project be open to other contractors for bidding. And the third point that I want to make is that Homeboy Industries, their participants, are members of our labor union. And we'd like to have Homeboy Industries be part of this program. More important than that, we don't believe that you need a training academy with all the training centers that are all over LA and the county for solar programs, including Homeboy Industries, Santa Monica City College, and our training academy at...
Thank you, sir. Your time's up. Thank you. Please limit your comments to the 1 minute we have, because we have, like I say, 18 speakers. Candido, followed by Janet Gagon.
Thank you, Mr. President, council members. I believe now at the DWP we have complete representation. The management has an outstanding individual by Mr. David Nahai who comes with integrity. We have the DWP committee headed by Soledad Garcia who represents the ratepayers, and the union has their representation. But this is about equality, and we want to make sure that Homeboy Industries is there. Has there been enough discussion? Have we really discuss those issues? Because over and over again we see that jobs are out there and they're going to be offered, but this time we really need to make sure that those jobs really go to the communities of South Central, Homeboy, the East Side, all these areas. So I hope we have a commitment from you, Mr. Nahai, that those things will happen, and we just need more discussion on this, and I hope that you'll listen to all of us.
Thank you. Janet Gagon, followed by Jorge Rodriguez.
Good morning. Janet Gagnon from Solar World. We are the largest PV panel manufacturers in the United States, so we are very supportive of this effort. The one point that we wanted to make here today is the fact that we did notice that the technologies have been expanded to include thin film, which we do not object to. We are perfectly happy to compete with all the technologies. The one issue with that is that we want to make sure that whatever is chosen for the city and by LADWP is the best value. And by that, we want to make sure that as part of the bid process, that the factors of production of energy, efficiency of the modules, and the durability of the actual product are considered in addition to that cost factor. We also request that if you have to go beyond LA County, that you make sure all of the product is at least U.S. made. And lastly, we'd like to make sure that there's a mechanism so that it's not just a shell manufacturing company in LA County that gets the preference. Thank you.
Perfect timing. Thank you. Jorge Rodriguez, followed by Barbara Burke.
Jorge Rodriguez, representing Sergio Rascon and the members of Labor's Local 300. You know, this is a good program, but all the components to making it work for everyone is important. Current language does not include all the trades, contrary to what the IBEW said, that they've been doing this work for 100 years. Solar is new. You know, it takes more than just pulling a wire and making a connection. Northern Union will see any of this work until 2014. If it goes to initiative, it would set precedent for the IBEW to have exclusivity on all this work. There's a lot more to this than just energy. It's digging trenches, the rebar, the iron workers, raising the panels, the operating engineers, the other work that the carpenters would do. We have solar installers in our program. And the other thing is that, there's the difference between just doing the solar panels on top of the water and power, giving the work to them to do the work on the corridor of Broadway, Hill Street, etc.
Thank you, sir.
Doesn't include everybody.
Thank you. Barbara Burke, followed by Elda Martinez.
Barbara Monahan Burke, Studio City Neighborhood Council Board, Honorable Council. This item should have come before the neighborhood councils through the DWP MOU for a period of 90-day consideration through outreach to stakeholders for discussion and input, deliberation by committees and the board, a vote by the board, and then advisory presentation to the council members. At that time, if the motion was recommended, representative neighborhood council members should be part of the task force to prepare and present the most well-thought-out, inclusive proposal. There are questions to be answered, especially in these dire economic times. We ask that you vote no on this item today in order for the proposal to be prepared in an inclusive, transparent process, which we expect and you should too, coordinating with the neighborhood council system. Thank you.
Thank you. Elda Martinez, followed by Diane Rosen, and our final speaker will be Noel Weiss.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm here representing the Los Angeles Alliance for a New Economy. The Green Energy and Good Jobs for Los Angeles Act will create hundreds of good family-supporting jobs with good benefits in manufacturing, installing, and maintaining solar energy facilities, jobs that might otherwise go elsewhere. The initiative establishes a jobs training and outreach academy, and will create jobs in underserved neighborhoods throughout the city. Additionally, pollution from burning coal for electricity has contributed to air pollution and smog that is responsible for thousands of cases of lung disease, asthma, and deaths in Los Angeles each year. The Green Energy and Good Jobs for Los Angeles Act will save consumers money over time. Solar will be much cheaper than alternatives like coal, and will help reduce the need to construct expensive out-of-state transmission lines. We ask Council to move. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane Rosen, followed by Noah Weiss, who's our last speaker.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm Diane Rosen. I'm chair of the Encino Planning and Land Use Committee of the Encino Neighborhood Council. The Encino Neighborhood Council opposes putting this solar initiative on the March ballot. The Encino NC asked, what are the marginal costs going to be for this project going to be? What will the price tag be for the yet unknown amounts of billions of dollars that this will cost at the now struggling ratepayers? The Encino NC is very concerned about our working middle-class neighborhoods and how that they might be destabilized and will collapse from the burden of these various costs that they're going to have to pay for these marginal costs. We ask that you oppose this now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Noah Weiss, our final speaker. Mr. Weiss.
Thank you. Council members, I've said before to this body, really, in terms of a decision-making process, two core questions. Who gets what and why, and what are we doing and why? This is a classic situation where the council, in its capacity as a reconciler, as a debater, as a mechanism where ideas can be debated and decided, can bring discussion to the table. The problem with the process is you seem to wait to the last minute, throw something together, don't involve the people, and frankly, this is the old style politics. This is the cannot do politics. Why must the city be divided when you can bring and unite the city together on common principles? It's not that hard for the city council to sit down and debate values, principles as a council and take responsibility instead of basically throwing it on the ballot and coming up with another reason why we cannot do it. I just want the council to try to do a better job in terms of drawing out the people, drawing out the ideas, so that hopefully we can get the right policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. There's no one on the queue. The matter is now before us. Someone's going to ask a question somewhere. Mr. LeBonge? Mr. LeBonge.
Anyone like to ask this question? What is before us, Madam Clerk, right now? Madam President?
Before council are the two resolutions, the ballot title resolution and the resolution to put this on the ballot, and also the ordinance to calling the special election.
Right. Does one of Parliament make a presentation? And is there any options, whether we go on the ballot or go ordinance? What's the best way to go? And to the CLA, I want that question asked. But Mr. Nahai, if you would, and staff.
Staff, please come forward to the table. Staff that's here on this matter. Someone's got to help Mr. Nahai. He can't be all by himself.
Jerry's coming up. Why don't you come up, Bill?
Mr. LeBon, do you have some questions, or Mr. Garcetti has his?
No, I'm going to just ask the presentation to be given. And is it a PowerPoint?
Yes, there is.
Thank you. So give a PowerPoint, and then if you hold a little time for me at the end, Julie.
Very well.
Right. Well, good morning. I was going to say Mr. President, but good morning, members of the council. My name is David Nahai, and I'm privileged to serve as the General Manager of the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. Before starting the presentation, let me just take a moment to thank the Mayor, the members of the City Council, and working Californians for all of the work that has been done in fashioning the Green Energy and Good Jobs initiative. Over the last several days, there's been a great deal of discussion. in order to provide maximum flexibility in terms of timing, technology, scope, space, and financing structures for the program in order to make sure that we accomplish it at the least possible cost. This program is about 400 megawatts. It is a DWP program. However, there is a comprehensive solar plan which will be rolled out in the coming weeks and which will take advantage of additional mechanisms such as feed-in tariffs, co-ops, virtual share mechanisms, and so on. I've sent a letter to the Council, which should have been delivered yesterday, to respond to various questions that were posed the last time we were before you, and if any elaboration is required with respect to those responses, I'd be more than happy to provide them. With that, let's go to the PowerPoint then. All right. First, a brief introduction. This presentation is in response to the Council motion introduced on October 28, 2008, that called for a report on the Green Energy and Good Jobs Initiative. The initiative, as I've said, has been championed by the Mayor, the City Council, and working Californians. The motion requested that the City Attorney, with the assistance of the Department, the CAO and the CLA, draft the necessary city charter amendment, an ordinance and resolution to place this initiative before the voters at the March ballot. And what is before you today is that, to move this to the March ballot. This is not, of course, the final decision that will be made. That will be made by the voters if this is indeed placed on the ballot. As I said, there will be a larger solar plan that will be rolled out in the coming weeks and which will incorporate various other mechanisms to make Los Angeles truly the solar capital of the world. And these solar plans, including this new initiative, will not only provide jobs but will enable LADWP to nurture and promote a variety of solar energy technologies. What we're doing, in effect, is providing renewable energy which will be generated in Los Angeles, by Los Angeles, and for Los Angeles. Let's go to the next. All right. The initiative represents a multi-year program designed to reduce the city's reliance on carbon-based electricity resources to generate jobs in Los Angeles, to alleviate stress on LADWP's electricity distribution system, to provide reliability, and also to give a much-needed economic to the stimulus at a time when it truly is sorely needed. This will be a historic change in how LADWP integrates solar power into its resource mix. The initiative is a key component of the largest, most ambitious solar program of any utility in the nation, I dare say, in the world. The initiative calls for the installation of 400 megawatts of solar generating units within the city and also city-owned airports by the year 2014, a 6-year time frame. The new solar power systems under this initiative would be installed, owned, and operated and maintained by the department, except as may be necessary to take advantage of federal tax subsidies and accelerated depreciation. That is essential to ensuring that the least cost is accomplished. Let's have the next page. The initiative will help LADWP achieve numerous goals. Meeting the renewable portfolio standard of 20% by 2010 and 35% by 2020, reducing the city's carbon footprint, mitigating our vulnerability to natural gas volatility, and helping reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, fostering the creation of new green and blue-collar jobs, contributing to the city's economic vitality, encouraging competition and development of emerging solar technologies through a sustained commitment to solar generation. The next slide responds to one of the questions that were posed the last time we were here, and it provides a comparison between solar and other technologies. As we can see, solar photovoltaic, as we've stated before, is more expensive than other systems. However, it will be generation within the city. It will be an economic stimulus, and no transmission is required in order to bring this particular power source to the city of Los Angeles. Let's go to the next page, please. In various places in the press, a number has been mentioned of $7.50 per installed watt as the cost of conventional photovoltaic panels. While this is the present cost, it does not take account of tax credits, of accelerated depreciation, of advancing technologies, of reductions in cost as a result of economies of scale, optimal siting, and other ways of bringing the cost down. As a result, we believe that the total cost of this program will be somewhere between $1 billion and $1.5 billion.
And if you want to surmise, I know we're going, I don't want to lose any quorum here in the next few minutes on this here, but we did receive this handout from your staff, which is real important on this issue here. Just a couple of questions. I don't want to break your your panel, but why don't you complete what you'd want to say there, but you could paraphrase it.
All right, so let me jump then to let's go past the next page to the rate impact page as we currently view it. I want to stress that under the program, a period of 90 days is provided for LADWP to do a complete financial analysis and to come back to the council. And so we intend to take that time to look at all of the alternatives and to make sure that the cost of the program is brought down to its minimum. At the present time, as we, based on the information that we have at present, looking at the typical residential customer with an estimated 500 kilowatt per hour monthly electricity consumption level, we believe that the increase will be $1.88 per month to possibly $2.78 per month. I have to emphasize that we're providing this information because the council expressly asked for it, but it is preliminary, and we're continuing to do our analyses to bring the cost down even further. The next slide shows you in a more visual way what this increment looks like, and as you can see, on the left is the current monthly bill, and right next to it, I think barely perceptible, is the increase from around $69.50 to $71.38 for the typical residential customer. So I think let's just go to the next one very quickly. This provides the current timeline. 50 megawatts by the end of 2010, an additional 75 megawatts by the end of 2011, an additional 75 megawatts by the end of 2012, an additional 100 megawatts by the end of 2013, and the final 100 megawatts being provided by 2014. So let me stop there and take questions.
Very good. Just a couple questions. Just how many megawatts do we produce today in Los Angeles with all our generation right now?
We're at 13 megawatts, and we have reservations for an additional 18 megawatts right now.
We're at 13 megawatts, so this would improve greatly the number of megawatts.
Oh yes,
Okay.
this is truly.
Next question is, what if we lose in the ballot? Last night there were two, green initiatives and both lost. What if we lose? Where does it put us if we lose? Because there's one thing that there was a lot of neighborhood council people who were here that expressed concerns, and neighborhood leadership is just like the Department of Water and Power. Excuse me, that's a faux pas. Department of Water and Power, a neighborhood council is trying to assert power in their community. They feel a little not heard in this area here. I don't know if that is the case, because I know you have a team that does outreach. What if we lose?
Well, with respect to the neighborhood councils, let me say this: we will fully engage neighborhood councils on all aspects of the initiative. As a matter of fact, the initiative calls for a very comprehensive outreach plan and we'll be following that. There's a 90-day period for us to do additional studies and look at other alternatives.
But what if we lose? That's the one thing I wanted to say. Does it set us back? Did we come back? I mean, it's important to look at that, because I thought those two initiatives, talked about green, and California turned it down, and I know there's a lot of stuff on the airwaves, so I think that should be thought of. I will, Mr. President, I will send my time back to the...
Thank you, Mr. LeBon. Mr. Garcetti, followed by Ms. Hahn and Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you to our General Manager, and thank you, Mr. LeBon, as well, for your questions and comments. When this was last before us, there were three things that I said were most important: the costs, the achievability of this, as well as the import, obviously, of going green. And I appreciate some of the comments that were made by folks from neighborhood councils about the cost. But I also want us to take a nuanced look at cost. I always have, which is there's always a cheaper way to live in the short term. But we've seen some of the long-term costs with asthma and cancer rates and other things of not having actual green energy. Sometimes it's not in our own basin; it's in other places where we have dirtier energy and dirtier coal. But I would not pay for more expensive energy just because it's green. But I think if it saves us money in the long term, both in the health of our world and the globe with global warming and the health of ourselves and our children, that is worth it, but not at any cost, of course. That's why we're looking at this today. What is your sense comparing apples to apples? Because often it's apples to oranges when people compare going solar versus continuing with coal, which we clearly don't want to do. We want to look at cleaner energy sources. But looking at other alternative energy sources, how much more, if any, would we be looking at, again, for your average ratepayer here?
Councilmember, thank you for the comments, Mr. President. We actually provided a chart that we can go back to, which provides us with the cost comparisons, and clearly solar photovoltaic is more expensive than the other ones, and of course cost must always be a factor to be considered. But I think here, while we must pay attention to the cost, the larger question is this an investment worth making for the city? Mm-hmm. And as I say, when we take a look at the economic stimulus that will be provided, the fact that we'll have our own owned generation within the city of Los Angeles, without the need to transmit that energy from faraway places, that in years to come, I believe, we'll find that this was indeed an investment worth making. Mm-hmm. And also, you cannot compare this to coal prices, because coal, while inexpensive at the present time, is not going to remain that way. There is around the corner a carbon tax. There is around the corner cap and trade mechanisms, all of which are going to drive that cost higher. And additionally, we've got laws such as AB 32 and SB 1368, which impose this change on us. Mm-hmm. This is no longer a matter of environmental luxury. It's a necessity that we diversify away from coal towards renewable resources. This initiative is one way of doing that.
And also one of the things we talked about, and one of the most important things that I've advocated on behalf of ratepayers for is reliability. So we're also comparing not just with other green energy, but some of the peak energy. So I appreciate in this chart that is available, you also look at what does peak generation from a simple cycle gas source look like as well. And that can be as high, even above what we're looking at as some of the entry level costs for the solar photovoltaic, correct?
Yes, and we're also seeing now in the city a different pattern of energy use than we've seen before. We had something like 4 records broken in September, in the month of September, very unusual, showing peaks of energy use. Having additional solar capacity helps deal with those peaks very, very effectively.
Mm-hmm. And just the last thing that we looked at in terms of achievability, what the only other big utility out there doing something kind of this ambitious but not as ambitious is Southern California Edison. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And where are they in terms of progress? They launched earlier this summer or something. They're 250.
They did, and I'm not sure how they're progressing. But on the achievability question, let me say this: we've looked at this. In great detail. I've sat down numerous times with our power system leaders, because we must have a program that succeeds. And of course, any additional flexibility that would be afforded to the department would be very welcome. However, the 6-year time frame and these goals that are now incorporated within it, we feel confident we can accomplish. We've also canvassed the various photovoltaic manufacturers, who've also given us the comfort that there will be availability of the materials we need in order to
And that's a little bit of chicken egg, right? I mean, we're never going to drive the demand for the level probably of photovoltaic cells if we don't have a desire to see them here in the United States, especially with a lot going to Germany. There's a shortage both because of their demand, but also because we haven't created that demand driver here locally. So it may be that we get more over the time of this program simply because we make that commitment.
Yes, and by stretching the first 50 megawatts out to the end of 2010, it provides us do exactly that, to notify the manufacturing industry of the needs that we're going to have them ramp up, to make the deals, to make sure we get the volume discounts that we deserve to have here, and also to open the doors of Los Angeles to the manufacturing industry by, again, publicizing the fact that there will be a bid preference here for them if they come to LA and if they employ Angelenos in their manufacturing work.
Great. And that's because I'm very interested in building that green economy here. I want to thank the business community, and I know the inclusion of the language that Ms. Gruhl and I have talked about goes a long way, and especially we look forward to seeing the rest of the solar plan come back. We have an amending motion that is coming forward that we ask folks to accept as a friendly amendment, which really incorporates what a lot of we heard from the private sector on this, to make sure that the piece that is going to go parallel with what we own and operate, but it is difficult for us to own and operate in the private sector, will also be a part of the plan that we have for solar. We might get to the 600, 700, 800 megawatt range of our total solar, of which 400 will be this piece. The environmental community I want to thank as well, who came here and in this public process, and I know a lot of people came and said, where's the outreach to the public? This has been actually just from these comments that we've had. It hasn't just been people coming and say, don't do this, but add X, Y, Z. And so in this time we've been doing that. So we appreciate you being here and saying that. It's my recommendation, in fact, after we get through this discussion, to continue this for 2 more days till Friday. So as we hear those suggestions, be they from the environmental community, from community groups, from the neighborhood councils, from the business community, that we continue to refine that, include that in our overall solar strategy as well. And lastly, thanks for answering the roof space problem, which I raised before. And I am confident that we can find that land in the basin, whether that means Palmdale Airport and LAX, as well as with private roofs, some of which can take the structures and some which can't structurally. But thank you for giving me some peace of mind of that, too. Thank you.
Ms. Hahn.
Yes.
Thank you. Very small piece of this. As you know, one of the things that I had heard from some of my constituents was the feasibility of doing solar panels on our street lights as a very visible, in everybody's neighborhood way to include this as part of this bigger problem or program. Your report came back and said it was not cost effective, it wasn't feasible, which of course was a little bit disappointing. You equated it, a non-solar powered street light is about 8 cents a kilowatt hour. Solar powered, you put at $1.60. So I was just, really wanted you to take another look and see. I can't believe that we can't figure out in this big program that we're going to be doing how we might not include street lights. Again, it seems to me that would be more jobs, more visibility, more ability to, be in people's communities and neighborhoods with what we think is a good idea. And I can't believe we can't amortize that or absorb it or add it to the whole volume and not get that cost down a little bit. We already have a couple solar paneled street lights in the city. I think there's a couple in Venice. There's one in the San Fernando Valley. As you know, my father's wonderful call boxes along the freeway are now all solar paneled. I don't know. Take another look at, again, certainly not a deal killer in any way for me, but I just can't believe we can't figure out how to absorb the streetlights in the total cost of all this, to see whether or not we might not take another look at that and include that as part of this project.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Ms. Gruhl?
Thank you, Ms. Perry, and thank you to my colleagues who have asked some of the questions that I was going to ask, but I want to make it clear as well. I think we want to ensure a couple things, and there's new language, colleagues, that has been added. If you look at page 10, I believe it is. 10, actually it's on page 11, but it refers to 23.165, which is the language about ensuring there's a private sector component, and a subsequent motion has been introduced to 29A that also goes forward as an amendment. And if you haven't, you can have my copy here, Joe. Here, Joe. 29A. But if you see that language in B, that was really to address some of the concerns that had been raised by the private sector, the environmental groups and so forth, to ensure that there's an equal commitment to not only the public sector and, as I say, owning of assets, at the same time ensuring that we have a private sector component. So that item B, I just wanted to point out, was language that we put in particularly, and in our 29A, and that Mr. Garcetti and I submitted. I'd also ask that you report back in 30 days on a couple of items, and that we, one, the status and development of the proposed comprehensive solar program, and report on how the DWP will present the proposed comprehensive solar program to the neighbored councils that are represented here today, and part of that process. And city residents as large, consistent with the MOU for their review and comment, as well as ensuring the continued funding of the solar residential rebate program and expansion of incentives to support it, with the program prepared for implementation by January 31st of 2009, and also to look at that private sector program, which potentially could include a feed-in tariff program as well. So we wanted to make sure that we had that balance of power, so to speak, in both public and private, as you have in your the whole renewable energy aspect of this. But one thing I do want to just ask again, because we're all concerned about rates and ratepayers and how that fits in, and had this debate several months ago about the importance of not only oversight, but as well as the importance of ensuring that when we present to the public that they are understanding the commitment to renewable energy, and that renewable energy does cost more, that hopefully over time, with the commitment to renewable energy in this country and here in the city of Los Angeles, that we will see those costs go down. In the short term, sometimes it may be more expensive on the short term because of the demand currently, because laws are requiring people or cities to have renewable energy. Is anything that you have presented in the financial aspects of here, when you look at the cost of this, and I know you indicated to someone's question or answer to the question the fact that this does not take into consideration some of the rebates and other things you believe may be coming forward, but is there anything in your modeling that you looked at surprise you from where the department was going with renewable energy, the cost for renewable energy, how it will be spread out over time, and the role that solar will play in that renewable energy? Sorry, I put a lot in one question, and if you could hold my time. Thank you, Ms. Perry.
In terms of a surprise, no, I don't think so. Let me say this about the whole move towards renewable energy at the department. It's a principal focus for us. We meet about our renewable program once a week. And once a week, we monitor the progress that we've made over the last 5 days. We're currently evaluating all of the financing sources, even of developers from whom we're buying projects. We're evaluating their financing sources to make sure that they're not adversely impacted in the current environment. We're very much aware that the issue of transmission remains a principal challenge to bringing renewables to urban centers throughout California. This program doesn't involve that particular challenge. And as we've discussed, this is generation in Los Angeles, within the control of the city. And that in and of itself, albeit more expensive, provides a counterbalance that I think is a very significant factor. And then when you take a look at the economic stimulus and the jobs production and the other advantages that the program brings, so I mean those are the considerations that I bring to the table. But in terms of whether the fact that it is more expensive than other renewables, no, we've known that I think for a long time. What is happening here is, I think, with great credit to the mayor, working Californians, and city council members, is that Los Angeles is making a very bold declaration that it wants to be a leader in the field of solar energy, and that it's going to step to the forefront and make an announcement which goes far beyond what any other American city has done, certainly.
And again, as far as the issue of concern to all of us in ensuring our rates, and we've asked this question before when we compare to the other Southern California Edison or others, we're still lower than those other cities. But again, when you looked at our renewable energy plan and you came to us several months ago for that rate increase, there was an anticipation of renewable energy at some point is going to cost us more, that we were looking at a 3-year term or whatever we were looking at to really get us through this next period of time. But there was an anticipation of a higher cost, potentially, as I think Mr. Garcetti alluded to, the short-term but long-term gain for the ability of reducing overall, not only from an environmental perspective, but hopefully from a cost perspective.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Our next speaker is Mr. Reyes.
This is rise to call for the question, please.
All right, there's been a request to move this matter to Friday, and we won't be voting on this today. I think that's been without objection, so this matter will roll over to this Friday's agenda. Thank you very much. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Next item, Madam President, is item number 28 was still being held on the desk.
All right, Mr. Cardenas, you wanted this item held on the desk because I think we were awaiting some new language.
Are we going into closed session on any items?
Madam Clerk, do we have any
If we go into closed session, can we come back to 28 after closed session?
All right. Mr. Weston, did you want to?
I'm not going to stay through closed session. I mean, if you need me, so I just don't.
Okay. Now I have a bunch of people
on the language in the back. Let me see if it's done.
All right. Why don't we have a number of people on the roster on that item. Why don't we let them speak while you check before we go into closed session?
Unless he's going to call the question. Unless he's going to call the question.
We have several people. There's at least 4 people who wish to speak on the item. Mr. Reyes, did you wish to speak on this item? Mr. Reyes? Mr. Reyes? The item? Did you wish to speak on that item, Mr. Reyes?
Yes, we're back on 28. We're back with the language.
We're waiting. Mr. Cardenas is going to check and see if we have the revisions done yet. So if you were planning on calling the question, just out of professional courtesy, give him a chance to go back and see if the language is ready.
Well, I was going to call a question. I wanted to ask a question. Just trying to cut to the chase here. So are we going to wait for them to come back?
He's checking right now. And if you want, I can put you back on the... Rotate Mr. Reyes to the back of the list. And Ms. Hahn, did you want to... And then we'll come back to you if you'd like.
That's fine.
Ms. Hahn, did you wish to speak? Your button's pressed. All righty. Mr. Alarcon for the second time. Did you wish to speak? Is Mr. Alarcon? Mr. Alarcon. You want to go ahead? And then we'll go back to Mr. Reyes.
Absolutely. Thank you. Where were we?
It's on you, man. It's on you. This is your time.
I just wanted to reemphasize where I think there's some difficulty in determining, distinguishing between potential audits of council members that are unintended as we vote. So one that I would offer would be any community benefits agreement where the council member has control. The CRA, AB 1290 money, that is ordained, and as such, would it be subject to auditing? And I think this language needs to be tightened up to clarify that that's not the intent. Like I said, I have no problem with city council members being audited. But if I'm going to be audited, I would want it to be by somebody who's completely objective, not another elected official. And I don't care who the next controller is. So I think this is a lot to do over nothing. This has historically not been a major problem at the City of Los Angeles. And we should not allow a dispute between our city attorney and city controller to create all this falderall when it hasn't been a problem. And I think the issue of whether or not to audit workers' comp in the city attorney's office, I have no problem. I think it should be audited. But should it be audited by an elected official? And I don't think so. And that's a problem that I have. So I'm going to leave the rest of my time for, I think I'm over my time, but no, I'll leave the rest of my time for Mr. Miller, but...
you were going to ask him about AB whatever...
Oh, I'm sorry, I mentioned AB 1290. That's money that essentially under CRA, the council member of the local district has a lot of discretion. In fact, I think 100% discretion on how that money is spent. And yet, it might fall into a category of something that would be audited by the controller under the language that I've read.
Well, I think it would depend on how the council member would use the 1290 money. Most of that is used for projects to supplement funding for projects in the CRA.
So you're exactly my point. It would depend. So you are saying that if a council member uses it in one way, theoretically, the controller could audit them under this language.
Well, not unless you used it to fund a program that meets the other definitions. I mean, if you were using it to fund a program that was established, by ordinance, or you were using it to supplement funding for something that was
okay. So I use my AB 1290 money to provide video cameras to LAPD. It might be audited.
I don't believe that would qualify under the proposed definition.
But
no.
You're not 100% sure. That's the problem I'm having here. And I'm not criticizing you by any means. I'm just saying that I don't think that's the intent of this concern that's been raised by the city attorney and controller. I don't think they want to audit other council members, but in some other, I'm not worried about me being audited, but there could be a situation where the city controller interprets the new language to mean that they can audit somebody, and theoretically there could be problems. And so I think this language needs to be clarified to exclude any possibility of those things occurring. I believe the workers' comp unit in the city attorney's office should be audited, but I don't believe it should be audited by the controller. That is the basis of this whole discussion, and our solution to it is to allow the controller to perhaps audit all kinds of elected officials when the problem is workers' comp. Go audit that. Don't come after everybody else. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and a million other anecdotes we can come up with.
Thank you, Mr. Alarcon. Now we will go back to Mr. Reyes if he is... okay, Mr. Reyes.
I'm assuming we're almost finished with these amendments or these changes?
They are in the back working on them now.
Okay.
It should be soon.
The objectives that we're trying to reach with this long discussion, are they achievable?
I mean, that's a pretty broad question. Again, I mean, it goes back to the premise of this and the intent of this, which is to define what specified or specific programs within elected offices that it is appropriate be subject to an audit. And that what is not appropriate to be subject to an audit from another elected official is the day-to-day conduct of an elected official's business. It's the voter's business to assess whether or not the elected officials are doing a good job, not another elected official. However, if there are programs such as GRID, if there are programs such as FMIS, if there are other, distinct efforts and defined programs, the premise is that they shouldn't be protected from a performance audit simply because they are placed in an elected office. So what this is intended to do is to not allow an audit of the day-to-day business of an elected official, but provide for auditing of programs that are distinct in nature and specified, along the definitions.
In this language, is there a way for, let's say, elected officials to defend themselves if they do become a target because there is this type of action from the city controller or the city attorney? I mean, how do you defend yourself from that?
That's really a city attorney question, and they're in the back drafting as we speak, I mean, clearly an elected official, any elected official could issue a subpoena or take some other action that a different elected official would assert is not compliant with the charter, and then as what happened in this instance, the response is litigation. And I think the effort here is try to clarify this issue and resolve this issue through hearing from the voters rather than relying on a court to determine what the voters intended when the charter was approved.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Mr. Cardenas.
Did he push his button?
All right, let Mr. Wesson go before you. Mr. Wesson.
Yeah, Mr. Miller?
Yes.
First thing I want to do is compliment Richard on his T-shirt. You look very dapper today. Now, I've heard members around the horseshoe today when we've been discussing this issue. And there's some things I've heard a few people say, I don't quite understand that, or I don't quite understand this, and be honest with you, there are things, aspects of this that I don't understand. But the question is, why? I mean, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it, and I personally don't have a problem with being audited or audits. But why today? I mean, why does this have to go on March's ballot? If this is something that is so important that a lot of members have questions about, that we're going to put on the ballot, and then we got a bunch of people in the back room for 10 minutes coming up with, why today? How come this, if this important act, I mean, is that something to do with a lawsuit or something? Hold my time.
No, at least my understanding is that there is no further litigation at this juncture, that both the controller and the city attorney have backed off. So do you have to do it in March? No. I think the instruction originally coming from the council and the committee was, let's see if we can get this resolved for the March ballot. You do have other options. There may be a runoff election in May as well, and the deadline for that is sometime in January. So there is no legal reason or necessity that it go in March.
So when the Charter Commission sat down and they hashed out all of these items, I don't remember how long that took. I know Janice was on it and Mr. Zine was on it, but it took more than a couple of months, didn't it?
It took a couple of years, yeah.
And so I just don't know how comfortable I am, Mr. Cardenas or Mr. Reyes or Mr. Alarcon or Ms. Gruder, or anybody, in acting quickly over something that I view is a very important issue, and if we need more time to vet it, I don't like this deadline forcing me to do something that may not be correct. So I just wanted to understand, why do we have to do this today? And it's my understanding from your response, we do it today so that it can get on the March ballot. But that's it.
Correct.
Okay, I'm just confused. Okay, it's becoming a regularity around this place.
Thank you very much, sir. Are you finished, Mr. Wesson?
I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Now, Ms. Hahn has pressed her button to speak for the first time. Ms. Hahn.
I was just wondering if I could have the support of everyone to talk about maybe tabling this today and bringing it back Friday. Still seems like there's a lot of issues, particularly with the language. We thought we had clarification on the 1, 2, or 3, and now it seems like there's some little issues about whether it's 1, 2, and 3, or just 1, or either or. So I would like to, I see Laura Chick nodding. So I think before we vote on this, we need to have clarification on what exactly it is we're proposing. And so I would ask for support to table it till Friday. Can I have a second?
Is there a second on that?
I'm not going to. I have a funeral on Friday. I won't be.
Ms. Hahn has a second from Mr. Rosendahl. And before we take a vote on that motion, I'd like to have the city controller just say a few words on the record, and then we'll vote on Ms. Hahn's motion. Okay?
Thank you, Madam President. And I was nodding that there's confusion over, is it 1, 2, or 3, or is it 1 and 2 or 1 and 3? And that makes all the difference, by the way. If it's 1, 2, or 3, any one of them, we're on target. If we start to change it and it has to be 1 plus 2 or 3, then we end up with very muddied waters.
Right.
But I'm not able to be here on Friday, so I did want to take a few moments to say what this is all about, at least for me, and I think for the public. This was always, council members, about going back to the public. I mean, once we started talking about a charter amendment rather than a lawsuit, this was always about addressing what, to me and many other experts, including the former president of the elected Charter Commission, which was the commission that spent most of the time working on the controller language, as a very wrong-minded charter interpretation. And there are points of view that can be argued, and would have been argued in court, to say the public always intended to have the controller given the right to do performance audits of anything through which public dollars flow. And so the charter amendment, in my mind, was always going to be a very direct ask to the public. What was your intent? Do you want the city controller to be able to do performance audits of programs no matter where they're housed? I totally agree that the controller's job is not to do performance audits of other elected officials. But there are very specific ways to identify programs. There are very specific ways to make sure that the controller's office is operated in an impeccably professional manner. Because, quite frankly, without that behavior and protection, the controller's audits mean nothing. And the controller's audits would be powerless. But to end up putting something on the charter that leaves to future city attorneys the ability to start to interpret what the charter meant as the charter-mandated role of an elected official, quite frankly, the language with 1 and 2 or 1 and 3 would have disallowed the disaster preparedness audit, which I think was a very important audit that showed we've got a long way to go before we're prepared in the city. But it was very much focusing on things in the mayor's office, and part of his charter mandate is disaster preparedness. So for me, this is, I'm willing to have a blackout period written in so that no performance audit of a program housed in an elected official's office can be initiated from the time an elected official becomes a candidate for re-election or for another city office until that election is over. And I think that could address your concern of an out-of-control controller. But quite frankly, this is about transparency. This is not about looking for ways to protect things. And I do want to point out what your colleague Wendy Gruhl said. I could have, from the day I walked into the controller's office, been churning out audits of every dollar that you touch. Your public safety community accounts, your GCP accounts, how you spend your travel dollars, anything. Okay, but my office isn't about embarrassing elected officials, and it should never be. It's about exposing areas in the city that need improvement, and it's about answering to the public taxpayer dollar about how their money is being spent. So, I implore you to go back to what I think was the original language out of committee, and that's saying 1, 2, or 3. And if it's anything but that, I respectfully request permission to write the argument against if you put something else on the ballot that continues to muddy the water. And if nothing goes forward, I am absolutely prepared to turn back to the courts and ask for their intervention to interpret the charter correctly the way the people wanted it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now we have a motion on the floor, Ms. Hahn's motion, which was seconded by Mr. Rosendahl. Madam Clerk, would you please open the roll on that?
And that motion is to continue the matter, but there are 2 speakers on the queue if you wish to take
All right,
those
the
first.
city attorney, then you give me some advice. Do I let the speakers speak before we vote on the motion? All right, then Mr. Cardenas is our next speaker, followed by Ms. Gruhl.
Oh, so I speak? Okay, all right.
Press
So
your button.
it's not for a vote right now. Okay.
Mr. Rosendahl has a question, point of order.
If we don't have a quorum Friday, which I'm told we might not, this would not then get on the ballot? Is that right?
That's correct. I don't think that's the answer for the city attorney.
Excuse me.
Mr.
Jerry?
Miller? Mr. Miller, did you want to say something?
The legal deadline is the 13th. You are in recess next week for League of Cities. However, it does appear that that enough people may be around to have a special meeting. So no, Friday is not the legal deadline. It was the practical deadline because of the scheduled recess for next week.
Okay. Could you just give me a quick comment on Laura Chick's comments to us here?
Mr. Rosendahl, you just asked a point of order. I know it's not fair, though, because he did press his button. Press your button. Because Mr. Cardenas was already on deck, and I don't want to be unfair. And Mr. Huizar, did you want to press your button?
Do we have quorum on Friday?
As of right now, we have.
As of right now, are we scheduled? Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and do we need 8 or? Well, okay.
Okay, Mr. Cardenas, you're up.
8, right? Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right.
You're up, Mr.
Well,
Cardenas.
what I'd like to do is offer an amendment. And is it being distributed? Yes. Okay. Okay. Amendment 28A, and basically it begins and it'll strike, for purposes of this subsection, program is defined as follows. It would strike that and say, for purposes of elected offices, program is defined as follows. And then it would strike 1, 2, and 3 and insert the 3 items in the amendment that has been passed out to all of the members. So that's the amendment that I have. Colleagues, let me clarify, as Wendy Gruhl clarified earlier, please understand the city controller has the right to do audits all around the city on anything that we do that when it comes to a financial audit. And what we've been debating today and what went through committee has nothing to do with financial audits. It only has to do with performance audits. And with all due respect, if elected officials are going to have performance audits done on them on a limited basis or what have you, who's auditing the controller? See, we're leaving that out. So if we really wanted to be holistic and say what's good for the goose and good for the gander and all that stuff, then let's just draw up language to say everybody in the city, elected or not, can get performance audits. And let's be honest about it, tip to tip. But we're not covering that. So let's get back to the issue at hand. The issue at hand is we're talking about whether or not the controller, we should go ahead and try to create some kind of language, and that's what my substitute motion tries to do, is create some kind of language that more clearly defines whether or not the controller has the right to have performance audits within elected officials' offices. And I think this language, and first of all, I want to say thank you very much to Jerry Miller. You have been pulled left and right, front and center, all different kinds of ways within a matter of weeks when it took two committees for 2 years to go ahead and revise the city charter. And here we're asking you to go ahead and try to perform this task of defining the language and then getting the city attorney's office involved to legalese the language the way we're trying to move something forward in a policy basis. So I want to first and foremost say what's going on today is no reflection on you other than thank you very much for trying your best and doing a very, very good job after being pulled in 10 different directions. So with that, with 20 seconds of my time left, I'd like to ask my colleagues to please, let's take this amendment, adopt it, and then move that language forward, because I think it's tighter than the language that we had today, and I think it's more true in the spirit of what the charter really is talking about. The controller does have the right to audit all of us when it comes to financial. It was never the intent for the controller to be able to audit other elected officials within the city. This language will tighten that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cardenas. Mr. Rosendahl, you're back up.
Jerry, could you react to this motion 28A?
Could I react to it? Well, again, it's Mr. Cardenas' motion, but one little I think attempts to address Mr. Weiss's concern that simply establishing an ordinance to mirror something already in the charter wouldn't cause it to be subject to an audit. So it carves out what is already authorized under the charter. The second moving clause expands on the concept of doing an ordinance that says it's not just established by ordinance, but the ordinance must specify that this program is subject to an audit. So that's what Mr. Cardenas' motion would do.
That's all I have at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Mr. Huizar.
It was more of a point of order again. There was a motion to continue to Friday. I'm not saying I agree with it or not. I just want to know if that would take precedence over the discussion that we're having. So I just wanted to clarify that. It doesn't?
I was going to let the speakers speak, and then we have two motions on the table. Motion to amend by Mr. Cardenas, and I'm not sure who your second is, Mr. Cardenas. Your motion. Okay. Oh, seconded by Mr. Alarcon, and then Ms. Hahn has a motion to continue until Friday. That was seconded by Mr. Rosendahl.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, Mr. Zine, did you want to speak next?
I just want to call the question.
Okay, that was done already. Ms. Gruhl, did you want to speak for a second time?
Call the question?
All right.
That's not in order?
All right, we'll open the roll on Mr. Motion.
Wait. Call for the question on whether we continue it or not?
No, on the debate. Just vote. Somebody move in whatever order that they are.
We can continue it.
I
just think the debate needs to...
We have two motions on the table. One is Mr. Cardenas' amended language, and then secondly, Ms. Hahn has made a request to go ahead and continue this item until Friday.
That's right.
And can I have a technical question here? I think it's technical, which is if, and the way in which we vote, if we do not continue it to Friday, I don't want to vote to stop discussion because I have some questions. So I don't know in which order we are going to do that.
Well, I thought calling it, we could continue it till Friday. We'd continue to ask questions on Friday.
Correct. That's what I would like to do. So,
Yes.
but if it fails, then I don't want to vote to. Okay. All right.
All right, Mr. City Attorney, can I have a clarification on that, please?
Please.
Or Madam Clerk.
The question has been called, and so that ends debate.
And then the question is,
The whole matter.
continue till Friday with the whole package.
Okay, Madam Clerk, may I ask you which...
No, leave debate open.
Madam, please, Mr. Zine. Madam Clerk,
open
can
and
we
call
have
the
clarification? Which motion takes precedence, the motion for continuation or the motion on the amended language?
Well, Mr. Zine moved the previous question, so I don't know if council wishes to vote on that first to end discussion.
Is there any objection to that? No objection?
Seeing none, that is moved.
All right, seeing none, we'll move that without objection.
Then the first vote would be on the continuance, and that would be continuing the entire matter, including the amendment.
And a point of clarification, does that take precedence over the amended language?
Yes, it does.
All right. Then go ahead and open the roll on Ms. Hahn's motion, which was seconded by Mr. Rosendahl. Close the roll, tabulate the vote. What? Okay.
This to continue. Continue, yes. This to continue, no, it's not.
And you did vote, I think, the way you wanted to vote? Okay. I reopen the roll, please, on Ms. Hahn's motion to continue to Friday, which was seconded by Mr. Rosendahl. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes, 2 noes.
Okay. Now, do we need to...
The amendment will be part of the discussion on Friday?
It's on the agenda.
The amendment will be agendized. Okay, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, next order of business?
Next item, Madam President, there is a special one that has been introduced by Councilmember Cardenas, and the maker of the motion will speak to the findings.
If we can have the maker of the motion, Mr. Cardenas?
Does anybody have...
Do you want to make any comments on the you have to make the findings on this?
Yes, the findings. The city has until November 12, 2008 to take the opportunity to address the FCC on preserving the availability of a large block of spectrum dedicated for public safety purposes. If the FCC issues an order unfavorable to the city's interest, their action may be final, as there exists no other available block of spectrum to dedicate to any redo effort at any fee, and the city will be forced to purchase such services at market rates.
Is anybody else on the findings? If not, let's go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is now before us. And on the merits, anything further, Mr. Cardenas? Are you good to go?
Just ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
A good, strong argument. With that, we'll go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Like all items, will go forthwith today. Do we have anybody who would like to go into closed session for those items? Do we have questions? Okay, Mr. Zine, do you have technical amendment on 25?
No, technical question.
Technical questions. Are those
That's on 26, and I have a technical on 27. I understand 27.
Okay, we'll now go into a closed session, but we do have cards, I believe, on these before. Madam Clerk, we have cards on these items?
I believe there's cards on 25.
Mr. Zuma Dog had reached his limit, and Matt Dowd on item 25.
Thank you. Yes, I waited a long time for this one, and I'm going to nickname this one the Zuma Dog item because, see, I just picked up this Boulevard Sentinel. It's got the Zuma Dog item in there, and it says in the second or third paragraph, Zuma Dog was forced to become an activist and started showing up at City Hall to protest Villaraigosa's new Venice Beach ordinance that banned the sale of constitutionally protected items such as T-shirts. So sitting in the back here he is, Michael Nagel, the attorney, who's responsible, in effect, for bringing Zuma Dog down here. And everything Zuma Dog ever said, and he beat the gang tax and the Prop H, affordable housing, and all those things, it's because of Michael Nagel. He should be shipped to the DWP or to collect unpaid, power bills. That's about the level of intelligence, because he banned Obama T-shirts. He's the guy who banned Obama T-shirts and shea butter. And this is the case, yes, that the federal judge, Dean Pregerson, said Matthew Dowd and Michael Hunt come in with this case because it's First Amendment issues at Venice Beach. And now we're paying attorney fees and damages. So Laura Chick, there's the first performance audit to be done. Council District 11, whoever the attorney was who brought in the dumb Obama ban. And here's Venice Food Not Bombs getting attorney fees, Carol Sobel, and guess what? They filed their case after us. So Matthew Dowd and Michael Hunt have First Amendment case priority in this one, but here's Michael Nagel. He's still litigating against us. No, he's not, but he's trying to convince the city to keep going. But there he is, Michael Nagel, Channel 35.
That will end our comments on this item. We'll now go into closed session pursuant to California state law for legal matters before the council, and if we take votes requiring a public vote as well, we will do that just afterwards. Thank you, and we'll be right back.
The amount is $250,000.
Okay. We'll open the roll on 25, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That settlement is approved. Item 26, if we can please describe the recommendation as well.
And that's a workers' comp case, Brian Dudley versus City of LA. Settlement is $114,118.88 plus the life pension thereafter payable at $108.23 per week.
Okay, let's go ahead and open the roll on that. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved as well. Next order of business.
Council has motions for posting and referral,
Those are posted and referred.
and that clears the desk.
All right, any announcements? Yes, Mr. Labange?
I know I want you to announce this, Mr. Garcetti. A great day of the vote for the people of this country yesterday. Election of a new president. The high turnout. Local issues. Some passed, some didn't. Some we hope still pass. But it was a great day for the people to participate in democracy.
Couldn't have said it better. Thank you very much, Mr. Labange. Anybody else with announcements? Mr. Rosendahl?
Yeah, I just want to say the turnout was phenomenal. The new president-elect, I think, will bring the change we as a world need. I was very upset, though, with Prop 8 and how that went. It should have been no, but people didn't understand. The confusion at the last minute was heartbreaking for me. And I'm sure other colleagues who performed, officiated at weddings and saw love and realized love knows no gender, and it was a basic civil rights, human rights issue, and I'm very sad with that turnout. Measure R, praise the Lord. We finally got the money we need to move forward. That is the first step. Now we got to get the federal government to back it up with more money. We'll get out of our gridlock over the next 20 years, which will be wonderful.
Thank you. And yes, Mr. Labange?
A collective thanks to all the poll workers countywide and all the county workers who worked on the election.
Thank you.
The poll workers, including many city employees who took their day off to be part of the process.
And Ms. Hahn?
Well, we have to talk about Measure A, which was also the city's initiative, ended with 66.12, just half a percentage point short. But there are still ballots that are being counted at this time, so we are not ready to concede defeat. But it was a pretty overwhelming mandate by the people of Los Angeles that they agree that we should be getting our kids early and preventing them from joining gangs in the first place.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hahn, for your leadership on that issue. And do we have any adjourning motions today? If not, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Rohan, Weezer, Labange, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Zine, Garcetti.
As a reminder, we will next be in Van Nuys on Friday for the first Friday of the month. That is the 7th. Van Nuys City Council Chambers at 10 a.m.